Welcome, everybody. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, the board did meet in closed session this evening, so if I could have the closed session announcements from Trustee Scott, please.
Yes. So for closed session announcements, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Deputy Superintendent, Human Resources and Strategic Development, Employees Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers, NFT, information was provided. Item C was not discussed, and item D, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D and 1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, student versus Novato, NUSD, civil case number 201-8080413, and information was provided.
Great, thank you. If anybody would like to speak before an item, before we move forward on anything, please fill out a blue card. If it's on the agenda, we'll plug you in where it's needed. If it's not on the agenda, we have that as well. Just state what you would like to speak about and bring it up to Sally, and we'll plug you in where need be. And if you decide that you don't want to speak right now, but later on you do, make sure you get it in before we actually talk about that item. So let's move on to approving the agenda. The agenda stands as is. There are no changes. So
I'll move approval of tonight's agenda.
Okay. Second. A first by Trustee Cooper, a second by Trustee Mack.
Trustee Nell was the first.
Oh, sorry. Trustee Nell was the first and Trustee Mack was the second. All in favor to approve the agenda. Okay, thank you, 7-0. And then for consent, are there any items that the board would like to pull on consent? I do have one that I'm going to pull. It's on item C, 15C. There are 7 policies presented, and we're going to take one out of there because it was not loaded properly on Agenda Online. So it's 5145.7. It's a sexual harassment. Board policy and administrative regulations, that particular one will be pulled. And we'll bring that back on the 16th. It just the board policy was not loaded, and so it gave nobody an opportunity to review it. So
thank you for checking that.
Yeah. Is there anything that anybody else would like to pull? Okay. So there's a. Yep.
I'd like to move on consent with the exception of item 15C.
Can we?
Or do you want to separate it out?
Yeah, let's do all of those items except for that particular policy is what I would like to do.
What is the number of that policy once
again? It's 5145.7.
So I'd move to the consent agenda with the exception of item C. Well, specifically within item C 51, the board report or board policy 5145.7.
Okay, thank you.
Fair enough.
Yep, thank you.
That would include the board policy and the AR.
Right, that particular one will be pulled, but we'll approve the rest of those in that item in 15C, which is 6 other policies. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have first by Trustee Cooper, a second by Trustee Millerick. All in favor to approve the consent. 7-0. All right, we do not have a presentation this evening from our school. Nobody had signed up for this particular evening, but everybody's plugged in for the rest of the school year. So we'll move on to announcements from our student board members and trustees.
Hi, I'm Jimena Lara from San Marin. So a few announcements. Today our resource officer came back. Seems like he's doing well. He just came back from his paternity leave. We just had our homecoming. That was great, really fun. Our learning lounge seems to be open a lot more, and I've noticed that kids have gone in there to study more. It's nice because it's open from 3:30 to around like 7, I think. Our senior college night is tomorrow. It's seniors. It's like opportunity for seniors to start their application process, financial aid. And the construction on the lights have been going on. So yeah, that's pretty much announcements.
Did you receive homecoming queen as
I
well?
did.
Yeah. I know
did.
you probably didn't want to say it, but
I did.
congratulations.
Hi, I'm McKenna O'Neill from Novato High School. We are preparing for our homecoming, which is on the 20th of this month. Our homecoming parade will be on the Friday before, so the 19th. Our JV and varsity games, our JV is at 11:30 on the 20th, and our varsity is at 2 on the 20th. We're just working on our floats and leadership and the parade and getting everything together. Tomorrow we're trying out an event called You Can Sit With Us, which counteracts like the Mean Girls movie where it says like you can't sit with us. We're all wearing pink, and we're having an event where everybody can come, and we're trying to get as many students together to sit like at lunch. We're gonna have food and snacks and stuff. The 15th to the 20th of this month is our homecoming spirit week. Novato doesn't have school on the 12th. Marin's School of the Arts has a theater studio night on campus in the PAC at 7:30 p.m. this Friday, October 5th. And we have our big band dance at the end of the month. We have a PSAT for the juniors on the 10th and a Saturday Academy on the 13th. Fall sports are closing up their season, and we're working on acknowledging the seniors. And we have our annual crosstown rival dine and donate on the 23rd and the 24th at Italian Delight. Italian Delight. That's all.
Thank you. Trustee Miller?
Full of items. See if I don't. Thank you. Three things. Friday last, I took the day off and toured 3 campuses, along with the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Jen Larson. And particularly, we're looking at the level that we've implemented Chromebooks and the technology program and the project-based learning exercises in each. And the question is, if you actually walk in the room, do you see what's going on? And in every case, within the first 5 minutes, students had Chromebooks open. They were turning in assignments on electronically. They were all using, not all, most of them were using Turnitin, which is a fraud prevention tool to protect integrity, academic integrity. And they were using Grammarly and spell checking, which is part of the tools of a modern word processor and platform. So our students' levels are going up. The only one of the comments that was provided is the principal at San Jose Middle School said if my 8th graders had already received their Chromebooks, which they have not yet, they would be able to start doing their high school mathematics work now. That the shortage of the rollout, not the shortage, but the activity and the rollout is preventing most senior students, the 8th graders, from moving forward academically. I thought that was pretty impressive, because here we've got what we thought was, is this really a good idea or not? And the answer is, when they have the tools, they're moving forward faster than when they don't have the tools. So I thought that was a very interesting tour. I'm going to take another tour, not next week, but the week after, of a couple of other campuses to make sure I've seen everything. So that's that. The other 2 events that I'd like to report on is the College of Marin Indian Valley campus had an open house this Saturday, and there was probably 1,000 people that showed up on campus for all of the issues, and they went through the multimedia program and all the career tech programs, the dental assistants and the medical assistants, and the new Rotary Center, which will become a community hall, and the new 50-meter pool that will be the largest pool in Marin County. It's the only 50-meter pool in existence in the county, and it will now be completely rebuilt from scratch with their bond money. So it was a pretty exciting opportunity, and we talked about, they did presentations on their school to career collaboration with the Novato and the Terra Linda programs to make sure that students can take courses on our campuses, our high school campuses, and get college credit for that work. It was a full day event. It was pretty interesting. And then last night, in order to make sure that the community in Novato is aware of what's going on at the college, the Friends of Indian Valley College sponsored a candidates night. So all 6 candidates for the College Board came over to the Indian Valley campus, and Novato Cable TV recorded it. I was the moderator, and our trustee Scott was the timekeeper, and we grilled them basically nicely about how are they going to support Novato, how is the Indian Valley campus and the College of Marin going to support Novato. We are paying the tax for their bond measure, and we want to make sure that Novato gets a return on its investment, and that was a 2-hour event. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Nell?
I think in the interest of saving time so we can get to our speakers, I'll forego any announcements.
Trustee Aguila?
I've just been visiting schools, and
Okay.
that's all.
Trustee Mack?
I'll be really quick. I think we should acknowledge Olive School and their 100% PTA participation and the
Yeah.
and the pleasure we all got to see in seeing Superintendent
Did you know
Hogaboom
that?
get slimed. Yes, green stuff coming out of his ear. Lovely. And as well, I did attend the College Marin candidate debate last night and found it very informative. A lot of stuff that we do transfers, but obviously much different issues. I would suggest all of us, hey, this is one of our assets. And I am guilty of this, but you know, my kids, 4-year school is my default position, but we all need to think about 2-year because it's a lot cheaper. And it's a lot more realistic at times. But anyway, I encourage everybody to look into that, as well as the upcoming debate for the district on what, Thursday? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Cooper?
No comments tonight.
Trustee Scott?
Well, just Ross pretty much took all my comments. I also was at the IVC open house, the ribbon cutting for the organic farm. If you haven't been to IVC, please go take a look. That campus has just done a complete transformation. They've cut down a lot of the old trees. They've cleaned out the creek. They've got new solar there covering the parking lots. I mean, they have so much going on, and I have to say I'm so pleased. I also serve on the Friends of IVC. I'm co-chair, and there's a lot of work that we're doing because that is an asset here in our own town. And it's important that we make sure that our tax dollars are, one, being spent wisely and going for things that the community, you know, will benefit from. So I also was, as Ross indicated, I was the timekeeper last night, and it was informative to go and find out what people want to do and what their ideas are should they be elected to the COM board. So I was thankful that we did it. Thank you.
Great. I just attended Marin Oaks Back to School Night, and then I went out to do the Model the Way Awards for our employees, where we honored 4 employees at 4 of our different sites. Superintendent Hogaboom, do you have any announcements?
I do a couple. Thank you, President Butler. So a couple things. We're in the midst of federal program monitoring. So we are lucky that we are chosen this year to have mostly our Title I, Title III programs, CTE programs looked at. So thanks to curriculum instruction upstairs, there is a lot of compliance, bureaucratic stuff that we have to comply with. That's one of them. We filled out all the reports, so they're here visiting and they're going out to school sites and they'll give us a report Friday morning about how in compliant we are. Yesterday we had our graduate profile committee meeting, and that's kind of the main focus of where we're in the district and what each school's doing to move us towards that. We have our new graduate profile graphic. We have our rubric, so it's kind of how to move forward. We had a meeting today with our school resource officers and how those are going at the schools, and sounds like from all initial reports that they're really helping out. And tomorrow we have a school safety summit at the Marin County Office of Education at 11 for the county. So that's what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. I did actually have one more thing. The governor just vetoed that bill I know a lot of us are following on taking 11th grade state testing and using the SAT or the ACT as the scores or the outcomes for those students instead of the CASP. And that got vetoed. So, which is kind of disappointing because at 11th grade, when you're doing that state testing, it doesn't mean anything to you, and you don't perform on it to the best that you can. So I know my 2 kids could care less about it, to be honest with you. So I'll chime in. And they're in college, so hey. Okay, let's move on to non-agenda public comment, and I do have several cards here, so I will read off the first 3 names. If you can come up to the podium, be ready to go, I'd appreciate that. And again, you have 3 minutes. The timer is right there. I think everybody is aware of the rules, or the protocols, excuse me. Actually, I'm going to go with you, Susan, first, because the rest are all related. So I have Susan Matthews, Janet Lucas, and Nick Williams. So those are our first three speakers.
Hi, everybody. I won't even take 3 minutes, but I just wanted to give a little more detail about the Candidate Information Night that's coming up on Thursday. School Fuel and the Marin County League of Women Voters are sponsoring Candidate Information Night. All 5 of the candidates for our school board will be there. It'll be at 7 o'clock at the Quest Church, which is at the corner of Novato Boulevard and Arthur Street. And there'll be an opportunity for audience members to submit questions on cards. So come with your questions, come to learn, and NCTV is also going to be recording it, and we'll publish their schedule for rebroadcasting it, and I believe they're going to put it on YouTube also. So everyone who can't make it will have a chance to see what happens. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Janet Lucas, and I grew up in Novato. I went to San Ramon when we were the Roadrunners. I was in the first 6th grade at Sinaloa, and I graduated from San Marin High School. After college, I came back to Novato and worked as a one-on-one aide at Sinaloa, did my student teaching there, and this is my 17th year teaching at Sinaloa. I don't stay in NUSD for the money. I could make a lot more somewhere else. I stay because Novato is my home. I don't live here. I can't afford to. But Novato and Sinaloa in particular are my home. I drive 25 minutes or more every morning to come to the place where I get to work with the most amazing kids and the most amazing staff. I've been here so long that some of my kids are the children of my friends from school. These friends decided to settle in Novato, our hometown, because they know how special it is, and they know that we have the best schools in the area. We went to them ourselves. They want the best education for their kids, and they know they'll get it in Novato. They know the teachers and support staff are dedicated, hardworking, and self-sacrificing. They know that we will do anything for their kids. We will teach them, we will inspire them, we will love them, and sometimes we even feed and clothe them. We buy supplies for engaging projects. We buy books for our classroom libraries. We buy treats to reward them when they do their best. We buy a lot of it with our own money, and we do it happily. We wish we could do more. We're not asking for a lot. All we're asking for is to be made a priority in the district's budget. Instead of spending thousands on programs and consultants the teachers didn't ask for, give us the raise that we deserve. Show us that you respect us, and you respect how hard we work and how much we do for your kids. Give us a reason to stay here in Novato, our home. It's not a lot, but it would mean a lot to us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Williams. I teach physics, engineering, and AVID at San Marin High. It's nice to see you all. So I wanted to open by just mentioning how proud I am to teach in the Novato Unified School District. What we're doing here is right. Our district priorities are right. Our focus on equity is right. Our focus on project-based learning and the graduate profile and the 6 C's is the right thing for students. I go to work every day, and I love being at work. I love teaching at San Marin. We have spectacular students. I get to work with spectacular people. My own kids just started elementary school in Novato, and I've been blown away by the quality of teachers that they've had in kindergarten and first grade so far. We have outstanding staff. What worries me is our ability to keep that staff. San Marin has an emphasis in science. This year, we went out and had to hire 3 new science teachers. That's been consistent on a pretty regular every year or 2 basis, having to bring in another 1 or 2 science teachers as we've lost the previous ones. I'm really hopeful about this 3 that we've got. I think they're outstanding. But one of the first things that I'm thinking is, God, I hope they marry somebody who has money. because that'll allow them to stay in our community, and it'll allow them to keep teaching in Novato. And that makes me really sad to say out loud, because I'm the primary earner in my family. But it's kind of our pathway. I know that we have local control of our funding, and I would request that we take control of that and ensure that keeping high-level teachers is a real priority. One of the things that shifted in this recent year is we lost one of the stipend pieces for teachers going above and beyond and serving on our really key district priorities like the Graduate Profile Committee. I felt like that was one small carrot. It was extraordinarily modest. The $500 didn't really change my annual budget, but it was a way of saying, we see you, we care about the extra work that you're putting in, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much for making teacher salary a priority as we consider our district priorities.
All right, our next three speakers are Kimberly, is it Lobs, excuse me, and Greg Lobs, and Eleni, I do this every time. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Hi, my name is Kim Lobs, and I've been involved in Nevada Unified School District for over 28 years. The first 14 years as a parent, a room mother, volunteer in the schools, and for the last 14 years I've been a math teacher at San Marin High School. I love my job. I love the students. I feel honored to work with so many at San Marin, as well as the collaborations with other teachers in this district. I'm overworked and I am exhausted. I will continue to work the long hours past my contract time to meet the needs of so many students, even though I should not have to. Recently, I was asked to attend our site's ILT meeting because I was trying to get a support to use in my class to help me communicate with my non-English speaking students. And this was my reply. Unfortunately, I cannot attend ILT. Currently, I have weekly meetings Monday and Thursday from 3:30 to 4:30 to support new teachers in my department, after which I go to the school library and work in the Learning Lounge with students who need help from 4:30 to 5:30 or 6. Wednesdays, I have staff or department meetings, after which I usually have a student or two asking for help in my room. And most every Tuesday, such as this one, I've had meetings with students or students and parents, equity meetings, or other groups that I'm involved with. I have no days after school that I am not attending some meeting. Our common planning time is being used just for that, common planning, which is good. It's really good, but it means only one of my 4 preps is for me, only one. Additionally, I am trying to do as requested, the big ask, and have attended Saturday Academy, worked at the homecoming dance, and will help as I can with at least one, most likely more, contract required activities. As I'm typing this, I just got another student request to meet at 7 o'clock in the morning for help. This, coupled with the loss of my lunch time to help students and the many hours I help online with my students, I don't have any time to go to optional meetings such as ILT, even though I know how important they are and how much I would like to be a part of the decisions and the discussions that occur. I am not stating this to complain. It is just a reminder of all that some do on our campus and that my situation is not unique. There are many on campus that are working far more than our contractual obligations require. When asked to do just a little bit more, sometimes it feels like squeezing water from a stone. For me, the most frustrating part of all this is the class size and student placement issues. We need more math sections. The reason I have to work so many extra hours to give student support is because with classes at or above 30, with 10 to 15% EL, low-level EL, and about 10% too low to be fully part of the lessons and work being done in class. It is a huge challenge to meet my students' needs. This is not differentiating instruction. This is like teaching 3 completely separate courses in the same room. Again, I am not alone in this challenge. Our department is overworked and understaffed. Student need is not just a number. Just because the contract is up to 34 students in a class does not mean that we should ever have that number.
Hello, my name is Greg Lobs. I grew up here in Novato. I went to San Ramon, Sinaloa, and San Marin High School. I'm Kim Lobbs' son, and I don't work for the district or as a teacher or anything. But what I do is I live in a multi-generational home with my mother, me, my wife, and my 3-year-old son all live together. And while we love this living arrangement, we've come to love what we have. My son gets to see his grandmother all the time. We didn't enter this by choice. I entered it by choice, but my mother was at risk of losing her home that we grew up in, and she was going to have to move away to Petaluma or Santa Rosa or even further away just to find a place that she could afford with her teacher salary. And so my wife and I made the decision to move in with her. This is before we had a kid, and we did that to improve her way of life. Someone said, I hope they find a spouse, a rich spouse to support them so that they can live in the community. You know, this is our way of doing that. My wife and I are, you know, trying to provide what we can to her, and we do that in large part because I think it's important to support our teachers, and that's one way that I can support one teacher. Living with my mother as an adult for the past, 7, 8 years, something like that, has given me a lot of insight in seeing the way that she works. And I don't mean during work hours, I mean all the time. The most common Mother's Day present that my mother requests from her 3 children, and that we frequently give her on Mother's Day, is help grading so that she can have a weekend. And she's got a stack like this big. Mother's Day falls in May, so that doesn't help, right? So she's got all these end-of-year tests. And I see her grading almost every weekend. It's insane how much she's working. My son, one of his favorite games he likes to play with her is to hang out in her office in a second desk, and he works, and he gets his pens, and he draws on paper, and he says that this is his desk. He's working because oftentimes when he's hanging out with his grandmother, it's at home, it's in the evening, and she's working at her desk because she's preparing lesson plans, or she's grading tests or grading homework. And it breaks my heart to see how much effort she's putting in, and then I hear and I see how little they're compensated. And I know we can't turn it around overnight and make all the teachers get paid the same as we do in the tech industry, but any little improvement that can be made must be made to take care of the teachers. Everyone puts in so much of their own time that I didn't realize it until I lived with her.
I hope I have a kid like you one day. Thank you all for your time. My name's Eleni Katsaros. I am a Novato native. I grew up in this town, and this is my 4th year as a teacher. Before becoming a teacher, I worked in corporate sales. I left that world because I found myself giving my life to chasing a dollar amount. When asked my why, my life goals were more along the lines of working with my community, coaching, and someday raising a family here in Novato. I may have left the corporate life to achieve those goals, but now I give my life to NUSD. Last year, I taught both art and design and PE as a 1.2. This year will be my 4th year coaching JV soccer at San Marin and my 3rd year coaching varsity softball at Novato. It'll be my 4th year running the Students for Social Justice Club through the Youth Leadership Institute. I also coordinate our department lunches, do our school announcements, and participate over and beyond to chaperone, attend teacher leadership meetings, et cetera, and et cetera. In all honesty, I don't do this job for the money. In fact, I don't even call it a job because I wake up every day and look forward to seeing my kids, teaching new lessons and learning from my surroundings so I can constantly grow and better my practice. I'm proud of my work, and I'm blessed to work under the leadership of our administration and my teacher peers. Teaching is my income, though. For me to survive in this district, I cannot live off my pride and my passion. So I'm here to ask you to fight. Fight to keep teachers like me who do this for all the right reasons. Fight for us to live here where we love your and our schools. Fight so we can overcome in an economy that doesn't show it appreciates us. Fight so that we know that you do. Thank you.
The next three speakers are Jeff Moore, Yvonne Gass-Jensen, and Rob Sundberg.
Hello, my name is Jeff Moore, and I've been thankfully tolerated as a teacher at San Marin High School for 9 years now, and as NFT site rep for 3 years. I'd first like to take a moment to thank the board for increasing both law enforcement presence and mental health services at San Marin this year. While in recent years, Novato residents have asked for their children to be placed in classrooms with smaller enrollments, this school year at San Marin has started with a record high 28 teachers incurring class overages, resulting in the cost-effective measure of allocating approximately $100,000 of Exhibit K money to pay for these overages. San Marin teachers were told at the beginning of this school year that nearly 100 additional students were coming to Mustang High as a result of the excellent work teachers there have been doing. Teachers were also told that having too many students in classes is better than having so few students that teachers need to be laid off, since those are apparently the only two options on the menu at the NUSD cafe. It's feast or famine, and if it's true that NUSD administrators receive 4% more than administrator salaries in comparable districts, while its teachers receive less than 4% of teacher salaries in comparable districts, then rectifying the situation with a teaching contract that would offset this discrepancy would send a message that this district is actually serious about two things. One, retaining quality new teachers, and two, rewarding experienced teachers financially for doing this excellent work. If Janice Joplin's Get It While You Can could be applied to this district's salary compensation scheme, it would not just privilege the elite few, as it already has, in comparison to comparable districts, but the financial love would be spread more equitably. However, until this contract materializes, San Marin teachers and staff gladly welcome the increased law enforcement and counseling services while continuing to do our excellent work. If San Marin student test scores this year are to rise as high as the levels of student and staff frustration, tension, and anxiety that accompany their overcrowded classrooms, San Marin's WASC visit next year may result in a soon-to-be-created lifetime accreditation distinction. While overcrowding may be a cost-effective business model for this state's prison system, it does not provide optimal teaching or learning conditions. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne East-Jensen, and I'm a teacher at Sinaloa. I actually attended and graduated from Novato High School some time ago. And my husband and I bought our first home in San Marin, where our daughters went through Sinaloa Middle School and also graduated from San Marin High School. When I began teaching, I actually held out for a job in Novato because I knew the importance of teaching in the community in which I lived. I stood on the sidelines with my girls, coaches, teachers, friends, family. I remember the first time my daughter actually saw one of her teachers outside the classroom. She was actually positive that the teacher had actually lived at school, and the fact that she was out of it was just amazed her. For 20 years, I've had the privilege of teaching an amazing set of children coming through Lou Sutton and Sinaloa. I have also occasionally surprised them with the knowledge that I actually also do not live in my classroom. My fellow teachers and I strive every single day to connect with our students on a very deeply personal manner and level. That could involve everything from listening to their accomplishments, giving them encouragement, providing advice, guidance, supplies, food, even simply just being there for them. These are important relationships that are necessary for the success of our classroom and our community. This is the benefit of living and working in Novato. Unfortunately, this is very challenging for many talented and dedicated teachers who cannot afford to live in this very vibrant community. Teachers can make 20% more 10 miles south of Novato, or they move out of the Bay Area, where their salary is higher relative to their cost of living. Novato continues to lose teachers who want a deeper commitment and connection to their community in which they teach. please consider a meaningful salary increase so that we can continue to retain these teachers who have already shown their dedication to their students and to their school. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Rob Sundberg. I am a proud teacher and colleague at Sinaloa Middle School. I teach physical education, and like my fellow teachers in the room and teachers at school, consider it a privilege to teach in this wonderful town, a town in which I was born, grew up, went to Marion School, Hill Junior High, Nevada High School, go Hornets, on and on. First off, I'd like to thank our entire school board for your service. If you've been here for any time at all, one certainly knows what a difficult job it can be. Believe me, we certainly do not take your hard work lightly. We are all here to offer our sincere thanks for the amazing work you do with your staff and teachers. That being said, though, we would like you to acknowledge equally the teachers and staff members of the Nevada Unified School District who are also doing exemplary work with our students each and every day. The reason we are here is while we love teaching here, comparable districts continue to offer their teachers more. Our union negotiators have outlined this to you, and once again, it seems to have fallen on deaf ears. Our students are asked to do much in order to prepare themselves for promotion, eventually from middle school and then graduation from high school, and we, their teachers, are willingly doing everything we can in order to do just that. All we are asking for is fairness. Everyone with whom I speak feels the exact same way. I love Novato, and because of growing up here and going through an excellent public school system, I feel very fortunate to be able to teach with oh so many great but underappreciated fellow teachers. We are asked to do something which appears to be simple, but is certainly not easy, especially when the demands on us grow each year and we are offered less than our comparable districts. Teaching middle school is not for the faint of heart. What we are asking you to do is the same. It's very simple, but it's not easy. Reevaluate your priorities and reward us for the most amazing work we are doing. Please consider demonstrating the same appreciation we willingly demonstrate to our students each day. Believe me, I wish we didn't have to beg or even ask for a fair raise, but if that's what it takes, so be it. Some can wait, and we will share a predicament with many constituents of yours. My wife owns a hair salon, and they love snipping and talking. Please feel free to visit our classrooms to experience firsthand what your amazing NUSD teachers are doing. I guarantee you will be amazed, and you will wonder why we even need to ask. Next time, let's talk about a gym for Sinaloa. Thank you.
Our last two speakers for non-agenda public comment are Jennifer Norman and Tim Block.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer Norman. I teach at San Marin High. It's my 4th year, and I'm very grateful to be there. I think it's a wonderful place. I feel like one of the 2 luckiest people on campus, along with Ms. Gatzaros, because we're the art teachers. And I always feel like the luckiest person on campus in terms of the teachers, because most people are really happy to be in our classes. And it's just a nice experience every single day. So with that said, I'm from New York. I started off teaching in the Bronx, and most of my experience was in the inner city here and in New York and in San Francisco. In New York, I had no problem. I was younger, living in a studio apartment with my dear friend, so that I could take a vacation or even save some money, which I could actually do in that situation. Here I am living with my boy who just started kindergarten here in Novato. So I have another new roommate. I'm a single mom. Also in a not quite a studio apartment, but not far off. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking that like teachers' working conditions are one and the same with student learning conditions. It is connected. If you don't value teachers, you don't value kids' learning opportunities. The environment in which the teachers are treated, in this case, not being paid enough, is in effect disrespectful to our students. We push a student equity in this community, and I think that is awesome, because that's how it should be. But what about teacher equity? We mold the future generations. We hold advanced degrees, and we don't get paid equivalent to our profession, to other professionals, and we can't afford to live in the community we teach in. I'm struggling to stay here, and I want to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful to be in a place where I feel safe, and I've met wonderful people. I feel like I just want to ask to be paid with our comparables with cost of living. That's it. Thank you so much.
Aaron, you'll follow Tim. Okay.
Hi, my name's Tim Block. I think I know most of you. Most of you have been in my classroom, and it's an honor to have you. When you do come to my classroom, please welcome anytime. We're doing some great things in there. But I'll start again. My name is Tim Block. I'm a teacher at San Marin. I'm a parent. I have girls at Pleasant Valley and Sinaloa, and I am on the NFT board as the treasurer. And I really like my job. I go in every morning. I'm excited about my physics students launching things off tables. And it's just really exciting to have that excitement. My wife, we went to In-N-Out 2 days ago. She hates going there because she counted. I got 15 high fives and block from behind the counter. It's payment for me, but that does not pay for In-N-Out burgers. I get emotional payment. I feel really good about being there, but it doesn't pay the bills. What pays the bills in my household? It's not me. It's my wife. The only way I can be a teacher here is because my wife subsidizes NUSD. It's my wife. I thank her all the time. Thank you for making the money in the household so I can go do my job and my girls can go to school in Novato. They have awesome teachers. I get to work with awesome teachers. Chris, thank him for me. Is he here? He hired 3 awesome teachers for San Marin Science Department. Thank you, Chris. But should he have to hire that many people every single year? And will they stay more than 2 or 3 years? Do I invest the time in this person to get to know them because they're going to be gone in 2 or 3 years? I'm making that choice every single day. Do I or do I not? Do I invest that? I'm coming to a place where I do less and less of that investing of time. It's difficult. So I did that. I do not live extravagantly. I drive a 20-year-old truck. It's got 300,000 miles on it. I love the truck, but it breaks down often. I have to have a backup truck just because my primary truck doesn't do that. Luckily, I have some of those skills and I can do that. But there are teachers that don't, and they drive these things, and they make these decisions for the kids, buying stuff. I keep a case of top ramen in my cabinet in my room. Kids comes in for, hey, Mr. Block, I don't have any lunch. I'll boil some water up, here's some top ramen. Case goes bad, I go back to Costco, I buy a new case. Keep it in there all the time for them. So some things that I figured out, I brought in some visual aids, and I think I have an answer, and this is my perception. Here it is. I'm going to go back to the 80s, and back in the 80s, we had a president. I made a picture of him because I really like this guy, Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan came up with the idea of the trickle-down theory. Real quick, there it is. And I think what's happening is many of you are making choices to do this, but I think a lot of it is happening there. The glass keeps getting really big on the admin side, and that seems to be your priority from my perception. And it hurts me. I go into work, and I see around this building, new desks, computers, tables, colored paper. I don't have that at San Marin. That's my perception. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aaron Fix. I'm president of Novato Federation of Teachers. I'm also a teacher at Novato High this is my 16th year, and I'm really happy to do it. I love working here, like has been reflected by, I would say, every single person, not just almost every single person, every single teacher that's spoken to this podium. They love working here. They want to work here. They want to stay here. That's why I'm up here. I want them to stay here. This is one of the first years in the Novato High Science Department where we've had the same science department last year and this year. Right? We've actually maintained. I started out as a department chair in the science department to try to achieve this goal, and it didn't work. 8 people were hired while I was department chair, and 8 people left while I was department chair. And I stopped doing that because it was supremely depressing. And so I took this position because I thought perhaps there was something a little bit more that I could do. Eleni Katsaros was a student my first year to be teaching at Novato High. That's awesome that she's coming back. This is what we want. This is what we've seen, and what we see over and over again is people like her stay for, she's here 4 years. That's awesome. 5 years, 8 years. I really hope she is able to stay longer than that, because she was awesome as a student. She's awesome as a teacher. But we have to value her work. What we've seen is an offer from NUSD that only rewards those at the top of our salary schedule. That's great for them. They deserve that. But what we need is something that rewards everyone, right? Those people at the top of the salary schedule deserve that money, but the people that are leaving are not the people that have been here for 20 or 25 years. My 20 and 25-year veterans, right, may stab daggers in the back of me after today. They deserve it too. But the people that are leaving are beginning teachers. What we're asking for is an increase that benefits everyone, that reflects the higher cost of living that we have here in Novato than our comparables do. When we add in our health benefits, we get a lot closer to that. Admin also achieves that additional money. And so what we see is admin salaries at the top of their schedule reflect that higher cost of living, somewhere between 4 to 6% higher. We haven't done a recent calculation. It was at 104% last time. We've now just added in health benefits. That's going to bump it up probably about another 2%. By our cost of living calculations, our cost of living is 9% higher, right? Even more so. So what we're looking for is something that's going to move us in that direction. We don't expect to get there in 1 year, but we also don't expect to get there in 10 years. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our non-agenda public comment. The next item is our public hearing. This is a public hearing for sufficiency of instructional materials for 2018-19. This is something we do annually, so I will open the public hearing. I don't have any cards to speak before it, so we'll just wait a moment. And I'm going to close that public hearing. Okay, now this item moves into a discussion action. We have the resolution Before you, this is a resolution for each school site, and on your table is the cover sheet that should have been put with the resolution, so just so you know what, it describes exactly what we're doing. And then a revision to the San Marin resolution is at your table as well. And I will turn it over to Jen Larson.
Good evening, thank you. Yes, as you can see, there are a couple of addendums that we've added in for you tonight. In accordance with Ed Code 60119, all governing boards are required to hold an annual hearing and then bring for approval the adoption of Resolution 7 for the 2018-2019 school year, which certifies that we are in accordance with the Williams Act sufficiency of instructional materials for TK-12. The item that you have before you, the original, we were in fact, it's a great example of why we have this process annually. We were one book short over at San Marin. We were able to identify that within the week. And so you have the new certification for San Marin High School identifying that they have in fact received the book that we needed for a visually impaired student. And now all 13 schools have signed their addendum.
All right. If there's no questions, this is a discussion action item. Anybody?
I'll go ahead and move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
A second, okay. A first by trustee Cooper, a second by trustee Mack to accept these resolutions. All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen.
All right. The next item, this is bringing back this is approval of Measure G updated bond program, phase 1 project plan. This is direction from the board from our last bond workshop, which was last Tuesday. We're here all the time. So we have Yancy Hawkins going to begin the presentation.
All right, thank you. All right.
Uh-oh.
There we go. All right, so this is the kind of the continuation of the meetings of August 25th and September 28th, where we discussed a lot of things around the Measure G program and the prioritization process and where we are there, as well as where we are in the completion of many projects and in the planning of many projects. One thing that I want to go over first is, and I'll go over it first and then I'll come back to it at the end, is the 6 questions that I will be asking the board tonight and hoping to get an approval or answer on. They really fit into 3 different groups. The first 2 are to hopefully approve the current plan that the district's bond program is moving through. That's the $82 million of projects that are already complete or through schematic design. And the second part on that is to confirm the approval of the scheduling for approximately $25 million of projects to start in 2021 to match up with the cash flow from the draws of the Measure G bond. The next 3 items are potentially changes to the district's current plan. And those are to look at potentially adding 3 elementary school air conditioning projects and prioritizing them into this first phase. The second is what to do with the Novato High second turf multi-use field as it relates to phase 1, if we should do it within the first phase or schedule that for 2021. And the last in those is whether or not to move forward with adding turf field projects for baseball and softball fields at the 2 high schools. The last one fits into kind of a category on its own, and this is to hopefully get the board's approval to move forward with the updating of the facilities master plan that was done in 2016 as we move forward towards prioritizing the next phase of projects, and then to bring back the bond implementation committee to help the district and board with prioritizing those second group of projects. So we'll come back to that. All right, that wasn't on. So I kind of went through that. All right. This first schedule really is a cash flow of where we are. And I think it's important to note within the first phase of the bond, cash flow is the important issue on the table for us right now. It's not will these projects get done. It is will these projects, what timing these projects will happen in. And so the first two sets of columns are the money that has been spent so far, and that's approximately, or committed, that's approximately $13 million. And then the second column that notes in design, those are the projects that are in detailed design and scheduled to go to the Department of State architect in the next couple of months. And so that's another $69 million. So altogether, about $82 million has either been spent or committed to a pretty heavy degree. The second is projects that we've just started design on. That's the additional $48 million. And in terms of cash flow, our current plan that we've noted in the updates to the board is to do the projects in this 2021 column in 2021 or later when it relates to the deferred maintenance projects. So those items are the deferred maintenance projects, and so those are roofs and other projects that are not currently scheduled prior to 21, so I would not recommend those, obviously. The Sinaloa Middle School gym, scheduled to start in 2021. The Linwood Elementary School remodel, as the board knows, we are moving the fans building off of that site. And so we need to get that work done prior to starting any construction at the Linwood site. And then the last is given the lights project that is, I'm excited to say, underway and going full speed ahead, that San Marin really needs to take a hard look at exactly their needs for that second turf field. And so we've scheduled that for summer of 2021 as well, to kind of match up more with when they'll have all the information needed to make a good decision on that project. So this is the current plan that we've been working on. It all adds up to about $105 million. As we noted before, we have a little under $104 million coming in scheduled to come in the first two issuances. And then I did open up the purse strings a tiny bit and recognize that we will receive a little bit of interest on that money in the neighborhood of additional about $1 million. So this plan is our cash flows meet the needs of this plan. So we would be okay from a cash flow standpoint there. So really, this is what we're asking for in questions 1 and 2 around the continue going with the current plan. Now, when we get into the three questions 3, 4, and 5, which were does the board want to change the prioritization and potentially add the air conditioning projects or the turf fields at the high school, we've brought together kind of 3 options. The first is it costs a little over $4 million for the 3 AC projects, and that could be done by deferring the second turf field at Novato High School to 2021. So that would start in 2021 instead of summer of 2019, potentially. And then deferring some of the 21st century flexible furniture that's been around, project-based learning and other, obviously, 21st century learning in our classrooms. That's one way you could, the board could choose to add the 3 AC projects. Another way would be to continue with the Novato High School second turf field in the current schedule of hopefully summer of 2019 start for that project. And you could do that potentially by phasing or delaying some of the 21st century flexible furniture, obviously a little bit more than the previous option, as well as some of the classroom technology toolkit. I think a key item here is that the IT infrastructure upgrades, which include the support for higher bandwidth for student use with the Chromebooks, as well as, and I think sometimes this is forgotten in that project, is because most of the cost and of the security system upgrades that were being put in phase one include wiring and cabling lines and IT upgrades. That is included in this project as well. Oh, sorry, I apologize. One thing I wanted to note on all of these slides moving forward is we've combined the two committed and in design expense, and so it assumes that we are moving forward with questions 1 and 2 kind of based on the direction given by the board at the September 28th meeting. So the committed and in design have been combined in the remaining slides. Again, a little over $105 million. We have the cash flow from the first 2 issuances and the interest income to complete all of these projects within, and then starting on those other projects in 2021 when the next scheduled, third scheduled draw is made. The last option that we kind of look at is how would we add the elementary air conditioning units as well as Novato High School and, is the elementary air conditionings and the additional turfing of the fields at Novato High School and San Marin High School. So those additional costs are about $10 million. One thing to note on this slide is that this slide assumes if we added the AC projects that we went with the slide before where we pulled the, when we deferred some of the flexible furniture and technology toolkit projects to do that. And the reason we assumed that in this case was if we were adding the baseball and softball fields, the assumption is that we would not have delayed the second turf field at those sites, given that the second turf field by the boosters, the site, and administration has been noted as the #1 sports priority at Novato High School. So how would we potentially defer that additional $10 million? So the remainder of the 21st century flexible furniture and classroom technology toolkit would be delayed to a 2021 start date, and about 60% of the IT infrastructure upgrades would have to be delayed until 2021. That likely would not be related to scope reduction, but it would be relating to phasing the campuses, and so 60% of the work wouldn't be done until 2021 on that. One thing to note, I apologize. There is a typo on the question sheet. It notes on question 5, approve or not approve the addition of turf, softball, and baseball fields to NHS and SMHS, $5.7 million. That is for NHS only. The total number is approximately $10 million for the two. So you've got it's here noting the $10.2 million or $10,200,000 that would have to be deferred in order to do that. So I did want to note that that was a typo, and I apologize. So there was some discussion at the last meeting around the second turf field, and a good question around, doing this field. Are we potentially harming ourselves? Are we going to have to tear up this field, or is it planned for an area? Basically, are we going to put in the second turf field, and then if the board makes a decision later to put in the softball and baseball fields, is that going to be an issue? So the next 3 slides reflect the different kind of options that we have. The first is obviously just the current slide of where we are right now with the baseball and softball fields in their current location. And these come from the June meeting where we showed the board several options of what this could potentially look like in the future. So the first is just the current look. The second is the current plan, which includes a second multi-turf field. As you can see, it's in that bottom corner over there. The cost of $2.7 million have already been approved by the board to move forward on that. And so that's the location for the field. And then in the item up for discussion tonight, this is the total cost of the three, which is the additional $5.7 million, which would turf the baseball field, which would move and turf the softball field, and includes a second turf multi-use field. The important thing to kind of note there, it also includes the tennis court move after the Performing Arts Center has been completed, in where 3 of the tennis courts currently stand. It has that as well. But as I was noting, the second turf field is in the same location in this, as well as the current move, as well as all other options that were presented as of June. So the board could move forward with the second turf fields now and not impede the work of any of the options that were brought forth to the board in June, any of the options for Novato High moving forward. There had been some discussion around, obviously, the condition of the fields, and the board had asked for to come back with some plans around what could be done on those fields. And so we really broke that into two different plans. No matter what the board decides tonight, no field could be completed in time for the 2018-19 baseball season. And so we have a plan for how to make that field safe and playable for the 2018-19 plan. No matter what the board decides tonight, we are planning on moving forward with this. This includes a contract with a landscape contractor, which we've already gotten into around the infield. It would include moving forward with a landscape contractor to help in the outfield. This will be probably linked in with number 4, which would be some upgrades to the field irrigation system prior to the current year, as well as probably the largest piece, which is a significant contract with a pest control contractor for gopher control. And that would include both softball, baseball, and the field in between, because even if we get rid of them in the field and we leave them in the field in between, they'll just come back. So we do have other options as we move forward to 2019-20, and they're a little bit more construction in nature, so I'm going to ask Todd Lee from Greystone West to come up here and note those costs. He'll also note, there was asked by the board to bring back some information potentially about getting the field in between them ready to do some upgrades to that, potentially in lieu of the second turf multi-use field, at least for a couple of years. So Todd will address that as well.
So following up on last week's meeting, I spoke to several folks in the business about how to repair these fields without peeling the skin off, because if we do that, then we're into extreme costs. Consistently, the recommendation was aggressive, thorough aeration, so a toe-behind aerator, which punches thousands of holes in the field. Typically, that's done to get water down to the roots of the grass. In this case, we're doing it to break up the turf without scraping it off of the field. So multi-directional passes, setting an aerator on a deep setting, 6 to 8 inches deep. It's also going to break up the gopher holes and the hard spots in the field. Following that, to come behind with a top dress, So coming in with a specially formulated, send the soil out, have it analyzed and tested, and have a top dress soil formulated specifically for the needs of your fields, adjusting the pH and any fertilizer deficiencies, mineral deficiencies that are in the soil to give it a little healthier start. We assumed an addition of about an inch of soil over the top of the field. In addition to spreading that over the field with equipment, is going back with handwork and filling in any low spots, gopher holes, raking it, leveling it out, and getting it clean. Following behind that is to come in with an overseed machine, which basically has a hopper on the front of it that holds a blend of grass seed. That machine buries the seeding deep. It also dethatches and breaks up the soil additional. The recommendation was, in addition to your summer blend, to do an annual rye blend in there as well, to, over the winter months, really make the field, the turf, more dense, so you get a really thick grass growth through the winter months and get it ready for baseball. In addition to that, Yancey touched on the gopher control. We assumed going through and removing the sprinkler heads and replacing them and setting them appropriately to grade, so new heads, and spending some time to repair leaks, valves, other things to get the irrigation system working properly. Also to go through and hydrojet all of the drainage. So this is a piece of equipment that blasts a heavy stream of water through to remove any silt and debris, clean up the lines, and then also take the time to go to the catch basins and adjust the catch basin heights. What happens over time as you top dress the field and keep adding soil to it, those catch basin lids get buried deeper and deeper in the soil, and they either get plugged up or they quit working effectively. So you need to make some adjustments to those to get it right. And then lastly, coming through, because when you overseed, you're adding soil, you're adding additional grass, you're raising up all of the outfield and the infield effectively to the infield mix areas, the baselines, the warning track, et cetera. Come through and add an inch of infield mix to those areas and compact it down to level everything up, clean it up, and smooth it out. We ran numbers to do that. We came up with a cost of all three fields of about $180,000. The one field that I can't recommend is the soccer field. And looking at it, the topography is just too rough. I don't feel it's a good investment to do this at that field. So if you're looking for just baseball and softball, you're looking closer to $110,000.
All right. The last question, the number 6 question that we're asking the board to provide us approval of is to move forward with the next steps. So a lot of the things that we talked about in step 1 through 5 are related to cash flow and schedule, with the exception of any projects that weren't in the facilities master plan that would be moved in. But as we move forward, we've noted a lot in the other presentations of where we are in our current budgets on the projects, and how do we prioritize the next phase of projects in this really 10-year bond. And so the recommendation of staff is to do an update of the facilities master plan. And that involves going to all the sites and validating the projects. You know, this has been over 3 years. It'll be over 3 years since the work was done for the original facilities master plan that was approved in the summer of 2016. So it's a good time. The other thing is to identify any adjustments or updates that have happened. So needs that weren't there in 2016 that really have come to the surface. The second part is after we approve that facilities master plan update would be to reconvene the bond implementation committee to prioritize all the remaining projects. And so it's staff's recommendation to do that work in the fall of 2019, moving into the spring of 2020 in order to be able to start the next projects in 2021 and 2022. So that was in our current plan as well, but we would like direction and approval to move forward with that as well. So with that, I'm happy to open it up. Oh, sorry, I wanted to come back to the questions that we're asking. The first two, in terms of confirming the approval to complete all projects through schematic design and to confirm the schedules of the projects that are currently scheduled for 2021 or later. The 3 through 5 is making a decision on the prioritization of the air conditioning projects, the Novato High second turf field, as well as the turf, softball, and baseball fields at Novato High School in San Marin. And the last, hopefully, is to approve the bond project prioritization project moving forward with the FMP and the bond implementation committee. With that, I'd be happy to open it up to questions.
All right. I just, we've heard this multiple times. The president, we kind of know where we're at. Can I go straight to, okay, clarification? Yeah, let's stick with that. That would be great. Yeah. So Trustee Mack, and then I'll go to audience.
Yes.
Apologize, my mic was not on. But 9 items listed there. My question, first question is, how many of those items really are things we need to do annually?
Annually, I'd turn it over to Todd on the expert.
I mean, maybe not to the same degree, but things we need to do.
I mean, for turf fields, they require a lot of maintenance and they require rest time. So typically you're doing some top dressing and reseeding of the areas and then letting them rest for 3 months to reestablish the turf after the heavy wear season. You wouldn't do the irrigation repairs. You kind of do those as they come up. Jet rodding of the drainage lines is probably something you would do more like every 5 years. Mm-hmm. They are all part of regular scheduled maintenance. Every activity that's on there is a scheduled maintenance activity, but they're not an annual scheduled maintenance activity.
Okay, so I mean, 110 for if you take soccer out, because like you said, and maybe about half of that is your true annual maintenance cost, about 50, 60 grand.
Yeah, probably a little less than that. You've got a fair amount of deferred out there. You've got some, I won't say neglect, but you've got some pretty poor conditions that you've got to remediate first. And then if you were to probably say you were putting 15 to 20 a year into the fields to maintain them, that's probably where I would place the number.
I just remember from Mike's presentation, it was 50 cents a square foot, and we're looking at about 100 and some odd thousand square feet, I believe. So
yeah.
Anyway, so the numbers seem to foot. And then Yancey, page 12, just really quick. And I know we want to get to the blue cards and anybody else having questions. The way I see it, there's probably a step 4 we need to put on there, which would be the target date for us to do our approval. In other words, just getting the BIC and getting things done, but then there's a process of, we need to probably build into the timeline how long it takes us to go through that and get it done, and maybe hold us accountable to a date. I would like to see a date where we're expected to approve these things instead of us continually, debating. So just my 2 cents, and I'll leave that to the president and the superintendent to decide how they want to do that, but that's just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Scott.
So regarding the maintenance, what are we allocating right now towards the maintenance of this field annually? Do you know, and can you tell me which fund that's coming out of?
So we don't do a field by field analysis of how much. Our landscaping department has 8 FTE in it in direct staff, as well as a large chunk of a supervisor staff. But you're talking, 200 acres of property throughout the district. So we don't specifically allocate those costs out to an individual site or a individual field. So I could only give you per square footage numbers, and those wouldn't even be actually too good because they also, they don't take into consideration when potentially a baseball field takes more to take care of than another field because of those. The other thing that's not included in that would be water.
Where I'm going with it, Yancey, is I just want to make sure with the 180 or the 110 that I'm not I'm not doubling any efforts there in terms of spending money that's allocated for these fields that we're already paying, or that's already been allocated to that department.
No, you would still have, these would be in addition to the regular, over and above the regular maintenance that is being provided district-wide on the fields. And yeah, so I would definitely, for my recommendation, I would go with Todd's of around the
110.
The 110 for the two fields.
So you're proposing really the 110, not the 180 then?
Yeah, I believe a board member had asked what the costs would be to do the third field as well. So we wanted to bring all three costs, so that is the cost, and if that's if that's what the board wants to do, that's okay. But
thank you.
That's not our recommendation.
All right, I'm going to move on to. Oh, okay, yeah, Trustee Nell.
I want to go to page 8, and just above the second athletic field turf, there is a square in a different color green.
Yes.
And my recollection is that was the original proposal for or placement of the second Novato High School field. So what's changed? How has that gone from that postage size stamp to now we have a much longer, shifted down to accommodate future construction, but is that really an apples to apples comparison?
It is, but I can understand the potential confusion. So the field has always been the size that it is noted there, but you are correct. In November of 2017, the location that was brought forward to this board to consider, maybe October, November of 2017, was to put that larger field in the location where that little postage stamp notes. We were trying to pull off from a slide earlier. We didn't have these exact things again, so we were doing our best on that one. So it did move based on discussions by this board of saying, you know, have we really taken a long-term look at potentially what we want to do for that field? And so that's why that was moved down to its current location, allowing enough space in the middle for potentially number 9, which would be to move the softball field up onto the same, and then opening up some of the space where the softball field currently is for any number of potential uses. But you get a lot of efficiencies potentially by doing that.
Yes, I just want to be clear, the smaller size square that's in the different shade of green where the original second field was proposed, we saw a fairly built-up design that showed bark around the edges, fencing, pathways to it, and now you're telling us that we're going to take the same dollar amount. That scope is now going to be expanded to at least twice the size of the original plan.
No, the size has always been the size that it's noted here. That postage stamp has nothing to do. It's only in the same location. It has nothing to do with that. It actually was a potential placement for a marching pad for the JORTC. That's why it's been updated right now, just to pull that out, because that's not part of the current discussion.
Great. And then one more clarifying question on page 9. You've amalgamated the tennis court cost in with the softball and the hardball field.
Yes, those have been included.
Can you break that out? It's an additional 5.7, so it sounds like we're doing, it's 5.7 is getting us to 2 ball fields, but that's actually getting us 2 ball fields and new tennis courts.
It is.
So can you break out the tennis court portion?
Approximately. Approximately 350 to 400,000 is the cost of that. The reason that the cost at Novato High would be higher than San Marin is that at the softball, you're turfing in place at both San Marin fields, and here you're turfing in place a majority at the baseball field, but you're moving the softball, which includes all new stands, all new ADA access, etc. So, but 350 to 400. So if you pulled that out, 5.3 if you wanted, and then a total if you added San Marin, and so you're talking $9.5 million for all 4 fields.
If we were, okay.
if you were to choose to go down that route.
Did you, that option that you just cited, is that in this report that includes the San Marin field?
No, it's not, because, sorry, the option of San Marin Field.
Defer that, right?
Say that,
It's
can
your
you?
recommendation to defer the San Marin Field.
It's staff's recommendation to defer the Novato High School softball and baseball, as well as the San Marin High School and baseball fields.
Right, so it's.
Sorry, that is a good
It's
point.
not, it's just not, I just don't want anyone to get confused between, they're the two, the dollar amounts are the same on page 3. But then when you actually get to the final cash flow proposal that includes the air conditioning and the high school field options, it's not really clear if this, I think you're subtracting the San Marin.
So the 2.7 is the second turf field. It doesn't, it's the multi-use fields. It's not the softball or baseball fields. And when we go to 6, the 10.2, if you look in there, has the NHS additional turf fields and San Marin turf fields at about $10 million.
Right, so that's fine. I just, you brought up what that additional amount would be to do the San Marin, but it's not something that we're considering tonight.
The second turf field, are you talking about, or the San Marin? Can you explain on page 6, you have San Marin turf fields at $4 million.
So that
What
is
does
the
that entail?
softball and baseball turfing in place for
Okay.
$4 million. The NHS additional turf fields are the fields as noted in slide.
Okay, and so if
9.
so page 6, I guess really that's the numbers that we're all going by, but
Yes.
the 5.75 also includes 350 to 400,000 in tennis courts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're talking, maybe 9.4.
Thank you.
Trustee Aguila?
Yeah, speaking of tennis courts, what is wrong with the tennis courts? Why? Because I went there and I'm not seeing why we need to. Is there anything wrong with
That's a great question. Our tennis courts right now are wonderful. They're terrific. If Jeff Valiant was here, he'd be excited to talk. Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you for the update. And hi, Jeff.
Because I was there and I'm not
so
seeing anything
they are
wrong.
in good condition, but that is the location that has been decided upon for the as the ideal location for the Performing Arts Center, and due to the topography and some other things about that, it's the ideal location for the Performing Arts Center, which is going to be beautiful and completed in January of 21.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, the Performing Arts Center. So we have to move.
I know. It's just. It feels. It doesn't feel right that we're fixing something that's not broken. But I see what we have to do.
Okay, Trustee Nell?
Well, there's no, since we built in the cost, it says 5 tennis courts, so I assume it's kind of like a swap. We're going to put the 5 league play tennis courts over here by I'm on page 9. Over by the softball field, and essentially swap out the 3 spare tennis courts, and now are going to become the 2 the spare tennis courts are going to be the 2 remaining at the end of the theater building.
In slide 9, the blue tennis courts are the 5 tournament. What we would decide to do to the other 2 would be to be determined in the future by the board.
I've heard property yard as an example, but yeah.
I know that there would be no.
Well, don't we need to do it when we break ground on the theater?
So as of right now,
so I'm just saying, the dollar amount is significant but don't we need to make a decision as to what we're going to do with the repositioning of these tennis courts, and isn't that going to impact the final placement of the softball field? And
So as of right now, in the approval of the schematic design for the Performing Arts Center, it is included in the resurfacing and upgrades of the 3 tennis courts, as noted next to the softball fields. So 3 and 2 for the 5.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. 25 million for the PAC includes tennis court cost.
A small amount of cost to resurface and make them
non-league
playable.
courts, make them league courts, and the end result would be 5 league courts split by the gym.
Yes,
and that's the plan.
Yes.
Now, Grant, if we then that brings up. I'm sorry, I'm taking your mic here, but
No, I need clarity. It says 5 tennis courts over here on page 9.
That means then when we go to page 9, if you would please, that basically the PAC isn't as expensive. We take some costs out of the PAC. I mean, I know it's not huge, but right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 100, 150,000.
Just.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, Trustee Gala, and then we're going to move on to public comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have. Oh, we can do public comment first. That's okay.
All right, if you're good with that, thank you very much. Okay, so I have a few cards here. If anybody would like to speak on any of the bond projects, please fill out a blue card, because once we do public comment, I'd like to bring it back to the board, and hopefully we can make some decisions here. So,
Debbie, to be clear, you're
Yes.
going to take all public comment now.
Right, that's what I just said.
Then we're.
I would like to be done with the public comment, and so if you're here and fill out a blue card, bring it up, and we'll get you slotted in. But right now I have 4 cards. I have Matt Elkins, Kevin Metcalf, Kim Staley, and Jana Morbitz. So those are 4 speakers in a row.
And thanks to all of your hard work, the entire board. And thanks for stepping in and stepping up to make tough decisions on behalf of our school district and our student community. I realize after 19 months of attending these meetings that your hearts are in the right place, and so many of your goals and aspirations for your district are quite formidable and often challenged. The influences toward action or inaction come from both the constituent community that's here on one hand and from your own staff on the other. And it appears the decisions before you, including turfing the baseball and softball fields at Nevada High School, find you in such a position. With nearly 19 months of consideration now under your belt, we know the following about our fields at Nevada High School. We have shown they are unsafe, and my sense is that all of you agree. We all agree that they have been neglected and underfunded, and that additional operating funds for maintenance is unlikely. That money not being spent there may be spent on other issues that have been brought up tonight. I don't know. We've demonstrated that we can't even rely upon the water system to do simple tasks like power washing. We've shown that the facilities don't meet national standards for safe play. We've conveyed expert opinion that lime-infused soil does not repel pocket gophers, and all other options are toxic or just plain unaffordable and labor-intensive. We've shown that the baseball parent community steps in and steps up to maintain and improve district property on their own, and we are proven very reliable and willing partners with you. We've shown that no other sport in Nevada depends upon the physical and often financial contributions of parents to survive, or less dramatically, for the program to function minimally. We have demonstrated the potential for return on investment for conversion to turf, not grass, as well as the year-round availability for use that comes with a maintenance-free surface. We've conveyed the importance of connecting the turf decision to the success of our own other efforts to rebuild the practice facilities. We have seen that, as the phrase goes, throwing good money after bad has only led to another phrase, that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We've heard from Trustee Nell and Trustee Millerick say repeatedly, and with the wisdom that comes with hindsight, if we're going to do something, let's do it right this time. I've said it before, the window is closing on this particular opportunity. If you don't vote yes now, most of us believe it won't see the light of day again. And the program and field will continue to devolve once the spotlight and activism fades out of pure exhaustion, and as certain parents, along with their kids, move on. So for some who work for the district, that might really be a good thing. But here we still are, ironically, seeing two decisions before you that impact the health of, on one hand, your youngest, most vulnerable students who find themselves in overheated classrooms, while on the other, the experience those very children could have when they reach the final stages of their schooling under your tutelage. You will have fulfilled the most nurturing part of your role, and that of Measure G, which is to provide a safe and healthy environment for your students. So do what is needed, not necessarily what is wanted, first. Vote yes on turf, phase 1, on all 3 fields at Novato High School. Thank you very much.
I'll try and keep it simple. As a person who's obviously gone through schools in Novato, played professional sports, what I saw here tonight seemed like a lot of bait and switch. You're talking about tennis courts that are being paid for but not being paid for. It makes absolutely no sense. And I have an engineering degree. None of this made sense to me tonight. It just seems like you're throwing good money after bad money. Yes, we can spend the money to repair the grass fields. I guarantee you in a year, they'll be right back where they are. It's happened every single year. Somebody complains about it, we go in, we fix it, the next year it's ruined again. With the drought aspects that we have in Marin County, putting grass out there is not gonna solve the problem. You're gonna run into a drought, you're not gonna be able to water the fields, you're gonna be right back where you started, and you're gonna be have wasted all that money that could be put towards paying teachers what they need to make in this town. I think that if you put off doing the grass, doing the turf fields now, they won't ever get done, which makes absolutely no sense because it's something that will save the school district money in the long run. You won't have to water the fields. You won't have to pay for maintenance. That money can be used in other spots, and it seems like it needs to be used in other spots. Thank you.
Yes, before I start, I want to say thank you, Superintendent. I don't know if you guys saw it, but we got to put 10 gallons of slime on Superintendent Hogaboom, and it was great, so thank you. Yes, my name is Kim Staley. I'm the PTA president at Olive Elementary, and I have 2 boys who are in 3rd and 5th grade. We moved, and actually in my 1 short year of moving back to Novato, I've actually spoken to you. This is my 6th time talking to you about installing air conditioning at Olive, and I thought, you know, what is the message that I want to send on the night that we vote for this? In the times that I've talked before, I've talked about my son Weston, who has come home sick from school from the heat, and how I truly worry about his health and safety every time there's a hot day that we send him to school. And it just so happens that tonight, Weston came through again to give me some guidance and inspiration, that before tonight's meeting, he selected on his own The Lorax as the book that we would read together. And I'm telling you, I started to choke up while we were reading this book because I was thinking about how its message really encapsulates tonight's vote on air conditioning. The Lorax, as you may remember, is Dr. Seuss's book that illustrates the relationship between living things and the environment. And this is the killer line of the Lorax. It says, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And simply, we need things to be better at Olive, at Loma Verde, and at Linwood. The heat has become too much, and for the health and safety of our kids, we need Measure G funds to install air conditioning at our schools. Each of our schools, Olive, Linwood, Loma Verde, don't have the fundraising base to pay for air conditioning ourselves. And I would say that each of our schools house the most vulnerable and needy kids in Novato. These kids, especially our little kids, should not be getting sick from going to school. And it seems like in Novato, it really is the poor ethnic kids who are the ones that are being really affected by this. And we need your help. please vote tonight to approve air conditioning in our schools. And I'd also like to publicly thank Heather Smith for being such an advocate for Olive, that she's invested so much time, effort, thought, and heart into making an Olive a better place. Her child doesn't even attend Olive anymore, but I know she's meeting with you, she's fighting the fight, and she's continuing to battle on behalf of Olive. And the second thing I wanted to say is thank you for serving year after year on this school board. I had no idea how hard it is. And the two things that strike me are, it is so much work. Never in a million years would I want to do this. And the second thing is really thank God for you. Thank God that you guys are here to roll up your sleeves and really make action happen in Novato, that you're making a difference in our community, with our schools, with our parents. So really, a heartfelt thanks. And again, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So please, I ask you tonight to vote for air conditioning at Olive, Linwood, and Loma Verde, because we need things to get better, and we're really counting on you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jana Morbitz. I have 2 children at Linwood, and I actually transferred to Linwood. That was not our home school, but I transferred to Linwood because I'm really excited about the new programs there. I'm really excited about the new face of Linwood. And I do want to say I've been in education. I've been a teacher since 2001, not in Novato the whole time, but I'm sitting here and I'm listening to the different speakers, and I wasn't going to say this, but I am so disheartened by this whole thing. It's Novato unified, and we're not unified. It's so hard to be fighting because you know what? I want the schools to have turf. I want them to have new fields. My kids are playing soccer, and they're terrible. And so I feel really saddened that I'm fighting for one thing while other groups are having to fight. It's the nature of the funding. I get it. Decisions have to be made, but I'm sorry you guys have to make it, and I wish that it wasn't the case. So that being said, I do believe that Linwood needs to stay in phase 1. We are not looking to be deferred. We were deferred with Measure A. That was a long time ago, but Linwood took the brunt of Measure A. We got the least of any school that was what they were promised. I won't go into those numbers. And we're really not looking to do that again. We're looking to take the new program at Linwood and the new face of Linwood and to make it really special and to make it really great. My kids are in TK. So I have a long time to go there, and I'm really excited. And so please make sure that Linwood stays in phase 1. And also please make sure that my kids have air conditioning and that all the kids at Linwood, Loma Verde, and Olive have air conditioning. We talk about equity, and I'm going to bring that up as well. Equity is continuously brought up by Novato. It's for the past couple of years, it's been a huge focus, and it's really important, and it's a great focus. Our elementary school sites are not equitable. And I don't think anybody can debate that. So as a board, you have an opportunity to start remedying that, to start the process of making our elementary schools more equitable. And it starts with air conditioning and with some of the remodels. Please show us that the values that you claim for the district, the values of equity, that you believe that they apply to Linwood and Olive and Loma Verde, and make sure that all of our students are receiving equitable treatment and have equitable opportunities at their school sites. Show that what we're preaching, what we're telling our kids, I'm also a teacher here in Novato, so what we as staff are hearing applies everywhere and to everything that we do. So thank you for keeping Linwood in phase 1 and not deferring us, and thank you for considering air conditioning for the 3 elementary schools who don't currently have them. Thank you.
All right, I do not have any more blue cards, so we'll come back to the board. Yancy, if you could come back up. And I just want to make sure we stay on.
I don't, but I can pull it off.
So that we can stay the course here and get through this. I want to, Yancy, to reiterate, we have the 6 items, and I think what's going to happen is we'll just talk about each item, and if we can move to a motion on each item one by one, I'd like to do that. And I know, like for the first one, we briefly talked about there were some consensus with the current schematic design projects totaling $82 million that we were pretty in sync with that to keep moving that forward. If I could get some consensus with that at first one, I think that's for me, an easier one to start with, and then we'll go one by one through there.
I was actually hoping that I didn't note, and I apologize, this was my fault. I did not note staff's recommendation.
Okay, yeah,
At the
let's do
end,
that.
So I would be remiss if I didn't note what staff's recommendation would be. So staff is recommending that we move forward on item 1 to approve to move forward with complete the projects through schematic design of $82 million. Staff also recommends the approval of projects scheduled for 2021 to continue that scheduling. That's the $25.8 million of projects noted. Includes the 2021 start for the Linwood remodel, the Sinaloa gym project, and the second turf field, as well as a couple of the maintenance projects that aren't scheduled until after that. Staff recommends the approval of the 3 elementary AC projects into phase 1 for $4.4 million, as noted in the option that continues to have the second turf field at Novato High School. For 4, staff recommends approval of continuing to move forward with Novato High's second turf field with a scheduled date of summer of 2019. And in number 5, staff does not recommend the addition of the turf softball and baseball fields at Novato High in San Marin into prior to 2021. And recommends that they be looked at and prioritized as part of the bond implementation in the facilities master plan, as noted in decision number 6, where the staff recommends moving forward with the facilities master plan process, reconvening of the bond implementation committee to prioritize phase 2 projects, as well as Trustee Mack noted, to bring forward for board approval in the spring of 2020, in order for those projects to be able to be looked at in 2021, 2022. So that is staff's recommendation.
Okay. So I want to, again, go back to number 1. If we can just start there. Trustee Millerick.
Okay, so can you bring up slide, I guess it's slide 3? I think that's right. You got it up there? 1, 2, 3, right. So to be clear, option 1 is, it's not it's column 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4, the purple ones?
Yes,
depends if you're looking at printouts or screens. The ones titled Spend and in Design.
Yes.
So option 1 is to fund those 2 for a total of, that have written at the very bottom, move forward, do not stop.
Yes.
What do you really think? Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to be clear. That I would support moving forward on those. I just wanted to be clear. We're seeing it on a slide.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, the $82 million. Trustee Mack.
So I'll go ahead and move to Trustee Millerick's point to actually, what I'd like to do if we could, and bear with me, everyone, and let me know if this works, is propose a series of 3 motions.
I thought we had an order of 1 at a time.
Well, but
we did, but we
it
can.
needs to go in the right order. So you can determine that. So the 82 million. So the first motion would be to approve the 82 million in the 2 purple columns. The second motion on page 3. Yeah, that's where you are.
Mm-hmm.
The second motion would be to approve the 25.8 million in deferrals to 2021.
Well, that's the second item.
Right. That's so, yeah, going right through the order. And then the third motion would be to approve, and this is kind of a kitchen sink, and it might be that we need to break it into 3 pieces, but let's just try it. to approve the 3 air conditioning projects, the Novato High second turf field. I'm trying to go, what page should I use, Yancy? 6? Okay. The Novato High additional turf fields, and then, not to include the 4 million for San Marin, and use that money to replenish the funds taken away from 21st Century Furniture, classroom technology kit, and the IT infrastructure upgrades. So I know there's a lot of moving parts there. I do have it on a piece of paper if we want to see it, but that's my third. I think the first 2 were already there, but we should go through them in order. But the third one's the big one, obviously.
I do want to thank you, Trustee Mack. Appreciate you laying that all out. So, I want to go back to number 1. I want to start there. So if we could just do that. Would anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve item 1.
Yeah, actually, Trustee Mack did. He started out with
I'll
that.
second.
With that exclusively, not the
Just
I can
one.
Just 1.
I can second. Second.
Okay, Trustee Aguila is the second. So I have a first by Trustee Mack, a second by Trustee Aguila. This is to approve the complete the projects through schematic design of $82,626,866. All in favor? 7-0. Check the box, number 1. Woo, time to go home? Okay. Item number 2, as Trustee Mack reiterated, I'm going along with his, and I'm going to, same thing, either approve or not approve the projects already scheduled for 2021 or later. That's the 25 million.
Debbie, I have a question. Oh, sorry.
It's the deferral. Yeah, which,
I think the board report might be more appropriate.
page 6.
Page 6?
Yep.
Or page 3,
Page 3 or 6.
So I'm looking at page 3. Where's that 25 million? Blue.
The blue column, the second to last.
See it. Confirm approval of projects already scheduled for 2021.
So to be clear, it's a 25.8 million on that, on the
So
second to
what
right
we're
column.
asking is to approve the current schedule of the $25 million, $25.8 million to start in 2021 when the third draw on the, planning before that, but construction beginning in the summer of 2021 on those 4 projects.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes, Trustee Miller?
So, thank you. I see the scope, and it looks to me like it's Sinaloa Middle School gym, Linwood remodel, ES remodel, and it is San Marin High School turf field, second turf field. Are we committing to build them by this motion? Because I'm not sure San Marin needs a second turf field.
Okay, let's clarify that.
The nature
right.
of, yeah,
Does this
understand the nature.
eliminate those projects completely?
No, this schedules them for the 2021. Right now, the board can make decisions later on what they want to do for those projects. But they are all approved projects in phase 1 as of right now. And what we're looking for is the approval to schedule them when we get the third draw on the bond, which is currently scheduled for 2021.
So my question is, I'm trying to figure out if by this motion, we are committing the board to do them, or are they gonna go into the Citizens Oversight Committee, or not Oversight Committee, but the Bond Evaluation Committee of everybody from all the schools, and we rebalance the projects? Are these on the table to be possibly ended, or
Staff's,
not, or?
no, staff's recommendation is to that these are approved projects by the initial bond implementation committee, and they are, the only thing we're asking for is to confirm schedule on those projects of 2021. That's what staff is asking for.
Okay.
Okay, if it just schedules them out and doesn't change their other status, so they're still available for this balancing conversation, we gotta find $35 million eventually. And could these be part of the 35 million, or are we saying no?
So the way I take that is that yes, it could be. When we go with the new process, we're going to go back to every site and we're going to say prioritize all the projects you have because we don't have enough money to do them all. So we could go back to, just to pull Sinaloa out, we could go back to Sinaloa and said, yeah, you had a gym on there, you had a whole bunch of other things on there too. Is the gym still really important? Is turfing the track at Sinaloa, is that still important to you? There's other options they could look at. They could look at refurbishing the existing gym they have, and maybe that costs $4 million instead of $10 million. So I think what you're doing is deferring that decision to 2021, but not exactly as it is, because the site might, since we don't have enough money for everybody, we're going to have to go back and revisit a lot of these projects, and we're going to use this process of going back to the site and then going to the bond implementation committee to really make that final recommendation.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Trustee Butler.
Yes, Trustee.
President Butler.
Trustee Cooper.
So my question is, one of our speakers spoke about removing the Linwood Elementary School remodel. And I'm curious, what was the reasoning behind that, pulling that and deferring it?
So the reason that that project was currently planned for 2021 was because part of that project is removing the food service facility from that. One of the big things that is part of that project is redoing the entrance and parking and drop off at that site. The food service facility comes out into the parking, as anyone who's been there knows that it comes out and really changes flow. The other thing is, when they're looking at currently a community center or other potential, they're going to need to look at that without so the earliest that project could even really realistically begin is 2020. And so it just became a natural, we knew we couldn't start that project anyways, so that made sense to start that project in 2021 with the Sinaloa project. At the same time.
I just wanted to make sure everyone here knew about the reasoning.
Yeah,
behind
yeah,
it.
absolutely. Thank you
Great
for bringing
question.
that up.
Thank you. All right, so let's, who did you, okay, that's true.
Well, I have a question about, are we discussing motion 2?
We're on number 2. We're just number 2, that is it. So I have a first by trustee Mack.
Well, I would like to discuss amending that.
Okay. Just got to raise your hand and I will. Yeah.
So what motion 2 does is it sets aside the 3 items that have been discussed, but if we just jump ahead to motion 3, it continues to set aside more items. So I'm wondering why are we not setting aside all of these items at the same time, or is that the way you guys, you're breaking it out so that it can be?
Option 2 brings, sorry, go ahead. Option 2 brings us to our cash flow currently. So option 2 brings us, we've got $105 million in projects, and we've got, with the $104 million plus about $1 million in interest,
Right.
we have 105.
And
All the other,
it does not add anything for air
it does not
conditioning.
add any. So it at least
It
brings
does not
us
add
to-
anything for additional turf fields either.
Yes, that is the first point to get to 0. And then if we would like to add any projects, then we're going to have to decide which projects we're going to delay.
Which is number 3 where we start
Exactly.
adding.
Thank you.
All right, so then we're going to establish sort of getting to a fixed point, and then we're going to have, I'm looking at the board report that has 3, 4, 5, and 6 more
Right,
things to
right.
discuss. So we're going to sort of lay the groundwork here that's going to get us to the 105 million that you're sort of seeking as the base, and then we're going to discuss additions.
Yes,
Exactly.
the 105 brings us to our cash flow, and then we can discuss any potential additions.
Understood.
Okay.
I'd like to second the
Okay.
motion.
So we have a first by trustee Mack, a second by trustee Cooper. This is for number 2. This is confirming approval of the projects already scheduled for 2021 or later, which is $25,830,446. All in favor? 7-0.
All right, for my third motion, I do have a piece of paper that'll help, and I'll just hand it out. Just, it matches what's up there, just to help the discussion, because otherwise it's very confusing. And Jim, there's a actually, there might be or Yancey, well, okay. Maybe Yancey could use it that way. So
here's my dilemma.
Okay.
Nobody in the audience can see this.
The same numbers that are up there. We can just, we
He's
can
just
use that.
If we can figure out how to make
Trustee Mack, are you just providing backup to your
Yes, I am.
motion?
Yes, I
Okay.
am.
This is something he prepared him personally, and it's just a backup to what his motion is. He obviously, I guess, laid it out on paper, and so he's actually sharing this with the 7 of us. So.
Then, okay, well.
Yeah, it's
So,
just,
and
it's just
I'll
his
talk you
motion
through
that
it.
he's presenting, just to put it on
I'll
paper.
talk you through it for clarity too. So the first column, you can see the 82.6 million, that we already approved that. Yeah, Yancey, find the one you think's closest. And then the second column, now and this is to Trustee Nell's point about the additional projects are getting pulled in. And the additional projects, we can see the 3 lines for the 3 AC projects, namely Loma Verde at 1.5, Linwood at 1.4, Olive at 1.5, the NHS second turf field at 2.7, the NHS additional turf fields at 5.705, and then the original numbers, the original plan numbers for the IT infrastructure, 12.9, the big number, the second and third biggest number on there. The 21st century furniture at 3.7, and the classroom toolkit at 3.5. Now the problem is we're at 82 right now, and we have 32.9 here we're trying to put in, and we can't do it. So we need to back out 10,184. And a couple things where I differ here, to be clear. The 4 million for San Marin, you'll note, is not on my motion. I am, and I'll be clear, I am saying it gets deferred to 2021 because they're not ready for it. They don't even know if they want a softball field turfed. And as well, if we're going to defer the 2.7 million for the second turf field, I really don't see them being ready to accept 4 million for the other 2 fields either. So I think it really makes sense to push that out to 2021 when they've had more time to sort it out and figure out what they need, and in fact, likely reduce scope. So I really don't see the need for the 4 million to be in this discussion at all. So that's why you'll see on that 32.9, it's not included. And then what I'm doing is in the very last column, now we're doing the deferrals. This is what Trustee Nell was looking for, the additional deferrals that get us to the 1.5. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the 4 million for San Marin that was in there and pushing it back to the furniture and to the toolkits so that we can at least have some of them, namely about roughly 50% of each, as opposed to nothing.
Second. Oops.
And then the remainder of that, because it doesn't use up the whole 4 million, I'm pushing into IT, so we can just get as much IT as we can. And the other point I'd make, that 12.9 million, there's no way in heck we're going to spend all that money this year. So it's screaming for deferral. So I'm sorry to be blunt, but there's a big part of that we really can't spend in the next year anyway, and as well, shouldn't spend probably until we've had all these AC units put in and all these other things we're doing. So the gist of it is we're backing out 6.18 from the 12.9 for the infrastructure upgrades. We're backing out 2.5 from the furniture, and we're backing out 1.5 from the technology toolkit to get a total back out of 10.1 and get us right down to the 105. And then in doing so, we've approved all the AC, we've approved all the turf that's been requested, and we maintain the toolkits, we maintain half the toolkits at least, we maintain half the furniture, we phase it in ultimately, and we can still phase in more of the IT infrastructure. And let me see, there's another point I was going to make, but I think I'll take discussion.
That a motion?
Yeah, hold on. Okay, so we have, first by trustee Mack. Do I
Point
have
of
a-
order, I
Yeah.
thought we have that's a motion and we have a second.
Right, that's what I was
We can-
going to next. So I was
Oh, I'm
going to,
sorry,
yeah.
I just
That's
want a
all
point
right.
of order, that's all.
I could get it wrong, but we do have a second, trustee Aguila? Okay, so we do have a
So
second.
I'm trying to figure out what the
So
motion
now
is.
we'll have,
I am so confused.
okay,
Well,
so
and
now
I
we'll
don't
have
think anybody in
discussion.
the audience knows this.
I get it.
Okay, so may I? May I speak to this?
Can I have Yancy go through what Greg's motion was? Would you like that, just so for clarity?
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Somebody, I mean, I have,
Yancy can clarify right Come up to, and
well, it's more than that, I mean,
Trustee Mack's motion would be to defer, sorry, hold on. Adding the first thing that's important to note, I believe, about his motion is that he would be adding the 3 AC elementary air conditioning project. He will be adding $5.7 million for Novato High School additional turf fields.
which means baseball fields?
Baseball and
Baseball for
softball.
Novato High, but not for San Marin or girls playing fields?
It include not for San Marin.
Okay, okay.
It delays the IT, internet, and safety, security upgrades for half of the campuses, roughly.
Yep.
It defers about 2/3 of the 21st century flexible furniture, and about 40% of the classroom toolkit. And so you would have to take likely, and I am on a fly here, so I don't want to, but you're talking about, that means none of the elementary schools are getting any IT up, or you can flip it and say the middle schools or high schools are getting no IT upgrades until 2021. So.
But we will still get it?
No, that would go into the same kitty as the rest of the money for the second cycle. It's not guaranteed to get it at all.
Is that, will we still get it?
It would be with all the projects in the schedule for 2021 buckets.
We have the flex, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, may I?
Yes, we were getting clarity for.
Thank you. So I understand better what this is. So I agree that the 3 air conditioning projects should move forward. And I think everybody at this table agrees that the 3 air conditioning projects should move forward. So I would like for us to pull those out and make a motion and cover that one item on the things we all agree, and then continue the discussions. Oh, yeah, well, we might just, vote your motion down and bring that one forward, but let's have that conversation. Because I would like to find agreement with what I'm trying to do. Okay. Well, and I think that's what Yancy was trying to do in giving us 6 points to consider. My concern is we're now proposing that we're going to do a baseball field at Novato High, but not at San Marin, and we're not going to do the girls' ball fields at the same time we're going to do the boys' ball fields. And I believe that's what do I misunderstand your proposal?
No, softball and baseball same time.
At Novato.
But not at San Marin.
Right, he's taken them.
So, okay, so the proposal is to do both fields at Novato High, but neither field at San Marin. Okay, good, I understand. Well, once it's in the next kitty, it's in the next kitty. Okay.
One point to note.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So the second turf field, the additional turf fields is 2 ball fields at Novato High, right? To be clear.
Yes, sir. Baseball and softball.
Yeah, right, okay. Okay, so that's at one of the 2 high schools. as I go down through this, I see the IT infrastructure upgrade of that and the flexible furniture and the classroom technology toolkit, which amounts to $17 million. It's a bunch of money. And it may be that we can't all get that in phase one, and that's a conversation I would like to have. But to be clear, when we start taking away from technology, the program, we have project-based learning in every classroom. I went out last Friday and visited every classroom. Every teacher depends on the Chromebooks so that they can perform their instruction. It's not something sitting in the classroom. The students are using it every day. By 10 o'clock in the morning, we're seeing bandwidth limits that are starting to affect the ability for those networks to work. Every student group is using Google Docs, which means that the document gets sent up to the cloud and gets brought back as each student does their work. All 8,000 students in the Novato School District are dependent upon a technology infrastructure, and every teacher is dependent on a technology infrastructure that has to work for classroom instructions to proceed based on the 6 C's that we have adopted, on the technology plan we've adopted, on the state standards, on the state testing. To simply say, we'll cut the number in half and I'm sure there won't be a problem, I disagree. I think that is not sound thinking. And if we could find the money someplace else, maybe we could have this conversation. But I just don't see how impacting 8,000 students on one hand to serve how many ball players play on that one field so we can find the money for an athletic program when we're taking it out of the classroom makes any sense at all. I just don't understand that. So I would like to have further conversation around that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
No, not with the.
It's about
we,
yeah, the air conditioning, Yeah, that's where I think I'm going to go back to. And then, so do we have consensus on the air conditioning? I would like to see. Well, hold on. Yeah, so we have a first and a second. I guess we need to take a vote on that. So.
On Trustee Max.
On Trustee Max, and then.
If we vote it down, then we can go back to air conditioning?
I have a comment on the.
Help me out,
the current motion. So I want to respect Trustee Milrick's statements on technology in the IT infrastructure as a strong advocate of it here in the district. Which is why I don't think it's going to be an issue. We can't spend all of that in a single phase. I think it's going to rise to the top as part of the second phase as we have time to do it. So I'm just basically saying I don't think it's going to be sacrificed. It's in the same category as the Sinaloa commitment, the rest of the Linwood commitment. Staff is recommending flexible furniture be 2/3 halved and the classroom technology toolkit be cut by 1/3. So there seems to be a consensus from staff and trustee in the community that we can spread the IT infrastructure upgrades out realistically over time.
No,
We're
I
gonna
don't-
do that
I didn't
anyway.
hear that. I didn't hear that.
I am talking right now. Thank you. So that is clearly, in my mind, the current situation and what's happening. So I think it's a good idea that to proceed on the motion that Trustee Mack has put forward, because it gets us the air conditioning and it gets us the low-maintenance turf fields to pay to run the air conditioning, and it doesn't set us back even farther on the issue we heard about earlier this evening where we need to come up with more money for our teachers. So I think it's an excellent compromise all the way around. And I think what we need to do is get to item 6 after this motion passes is to move up the planning. So I'm
Yeah, hold on. Can you just let Trustee Nell finish? Sure. Come on.
I would ask the board to consider these things as a viable option. These are our schools, these are our fields. We all know, I don't want to keep going over and over again, the investment in grass, what it's been to us over the years. I want you to consider everything that we've been talking about. There's a lot of wisdom in doing what's currently being proposed, and I look forward to your comments on the issue before we take a vote.
Okay, no, before we go any further, I would like to swing back around to Yancey and then Superintendent Hogaboom. Yancey, could you address the infrastructure funding and all of that? And we're hearing that it won't be all used in phase one and
how quickly you can complete it.
So I want to be clear, and I don't know if I misunderstood Trustee Nels. It's absolutely not staff's opinion that delaying the IT infrastructure is our recommendation. The $12.9 million is scheduled to do all sites, complete upgrade of the technology in the summer of 2019, and maybe a few projects in the summer of 2020. I'll have Todd Lee can note on that. The only way to cut back on that project would be to delay approximately 1/2 of the sites from receiving any technology upgrades prior to 2021. We have approved a engineering contract in June, I believe, that is working, moving forward to design on this project as of right now, with a scheduled implementation of as much as we can do in the summer of 2019, and whatever remaining sites to be done in the summer of 2020. I think it's important, as Jen Larson or Tim Rocco would have noted, is the Ed Services Department and the IT Department in moving forward with the Chromebook purchases for the phase 1, 2, and 3 are heavily relying upon those IT infrastructure projects being completed. Todd can note on the specifics of construction costs, and so I'll let him discuss that.
So of the 13 million, approximately 10 million is hard cost, and of that 10 million, approximately 3 million is equipment purchase. So actual cabling contracts are projected to be between 6.5 and $7 million. Just in recent years, we've done a couple in excess of 4 million in a single summer. So I believe it's certainly doable. We're looking for the economies of scale to cable multiple campuses over the summer. It's largely fits into two categories: upgrade of cabling and fiber optic, and replacement of equipment.
Okay, and I want to go back to Superintendent Hogaboom. He had a comment.
So I would just reiterate the importance of infrastructure. If we don't have the infrastructure, we can't support the Chromebook. So again, I would just really caution the board against cutting that 12.9 million. The second thing I want to respond to is doing the Novato High School baseball and softball field and not doing the San Marin. We have talked very closely with the principal, Mark Sims, and with the athletic director, Dennis Davis. They are ready to go with those fields as well. They are willing to hold off on the second turf field because the lights impact that. But they would love to have their softball field turfed right now as well as their baseball field. Those, there's no question of moving those, ready to go. In fact, it's cheaper to do those too because they're right in place where they are right now. So I'm just relaying to you, San Marin would like to, if you're going to include Novato High School, San Marin would like to be included in that. Well, they're again ready to hold off on that second turf field because they don't know the impact of lights. They are not willing to wait, and they want their baseball and softball fields done just as soon as, if you're going to approve Novato High School, they would like theirs done as well. So I'm just relaying their thoughts on that.
Okay, so we've received some additional information. Trustee Miller.
Can I try something?
Trustee Aguila had
Yep.
before you, and then I'll go to you after her. Okay, Trustee Aguila.
So is San Marin here?
I don't think the principal is not here. No,
Okay.
no.
So
or the AD, the athletic director. No.
So it's not my belief. I believe that San Marin has not asked as strongly or advocated as strongly for some of the stuff that we need, as far as not as much as Novato High. So that's one point. The second thing is I spent a lot of time lately with the IT department, and I understand Trustee Millerick's input. I think Novato is moving forward with the infrastructure. I think it's important. We're doing things today that we never could have dreamed of, where we are now opening communication. So that's important. However, to me, safety has come up. And in this trustee right here, I believe safety is number one. And so unfortunately, we've had to, like you mentioned, it bubbled up. So safety is my my first concern, and we still need the furniture and we still need all the IT that we are proposing. But to me, safety is my number one priority. That's just my input.
Okay, thank you. So remind ourselves that we have a motion on the table, and so Trustee Millerick?
So I'm hoping that we can find common ground, that we can move on.
Sure.
So I'm going to propose an amendment to the motion, and I'm going to delete all the proposals and replace it with the 3 air conditionings, Loma Verde, Linwood, and Olive only. And that way it replaces the motion with the items that are the 3 air conditioning, so we can get a vote on that 4.4 million, and get a vote on that, because we all, I believe, 7 of us agree on that, and I would like to get that clear. And these other discussions, I think, are important conversations, so I'm going to make that as an amendment. And
As an amendment, okay.
And see if somebody seconds it, to see if we can get a motion.
Is the motion on the table, are you in good, are you okay?
Robert's rules.
Yeah. You would have to accept it or not.
Let me say this. I am willing to talk about the 3 numbers that we have in parentheses here, the 6184, the 25, the 15. I have no vested interest in how those numbers are broken out. If this board feels it's more important to put the entirety of that number back into IT infrastructure, that's fine. It's just that 10,184,100 is the total. That's all they care about. So I'm open to that, but I'm not open to doing what you just said.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that your suggestion was
amendment fails.
yeah.
But I wanted to give us a chance to find agreement as
Right.
opposed to disagreement.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this motion that's on the table, and do I need to have the maker of the motion reiterate his motion? Is there any more discussion on what's at hand?
Yeah, I want somebody to clarify it. If we're going to get ready to move, I would like that.
Okay. I'm going to rephrase it again. Trustee Mack made a motion of taking the 3 ACs at Olive, Linwood, and Loma Verde, approving those. Also, the 5.7 Novato High turf field, which is turfing the baseball field and the softball field, turfing the Novato High second turf field at 2.7 million. And according to his worksheet, he wants to delay, or excuse me, not delay, but defer some of the funds for the IT infrastructure upgrades, the furniture, and the toolkit. And on his spreadsheet, he's taken money of $10.1 million out of those 3 items to fund the Novato High turf fields and the air conditioning at the 3 sites.
And tennis courts.
Yeah.
And what?
Tennis courts.
Well, the tennis courts are included in that cost.
Second.
Yeah, and thank you. And
deferring
deferring San Marin turfing of San Marin's softball and baseball field, which was $4 million, deferring that.
Okay, so I will vote no on 2 accounts. One is, I believe the technology requirements of this district for 8,000 students require us to put these funds in place, and this moves them out. And I believe we are damaging 8,000 students' education and the 6C program that this district has identified. We're putting that aside for an athletic facility, and I just will vote no on that. And the second is that we're going to fund Novato High School for 2 fields, 2 baseball fields, and San Marin for none. And I live in the San Marin community, and everybody else knows where everybody else lives. And we need to figure out where the board members need to be elected from going forward, because clearly Novato High community members are putting one high school above the other. This is absolutely unequal across town.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Trustee Cooper and then Trustee Scott.
And I also am going to vote no on the motion for essentially the same reason as the first, as Trustee Millerick's first comment. There's no way that we had a speaker come from the IT department at the last board meeting and spoke very eloquently about the dire condition of our IT infrastructure, and it's not something we can put off. This is something we've got Chromebooks in place, we've got Chromebooks coming, so I'm not willing to make that sacrifice. And you've got to pull 6.184. I don't want to deviate from that number. So I'm going to vote no for it.
Trustee Scott.
Well, I am supportive of it. Our schools need the air conditioning, and I really truly feel that if we don't do these fields, there's not going to be another opportunity. You know, we keep talking about defer, 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 defer. I'm tired of deferring. I know because the IT infrastructure is very important that it will come back, and I think it'll be literally probably the next thing this board approves. You know, I'm happy to have us flex around the numbers in terms of the IT infrastructure and the flexible furniture and the technology toolkit. I think they're very important. I think they need to be done. So, you know, if we want to play around with those numbers, I'm willing to entertain that. But I am in support of getting these items done. It is a health and safety issue. And we need to get it done. I just really truly feel that if we don't do this, there's not going to be an opportunity. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say that San Marin won't get theirs. It's going to be deferred. That's going to go back to them. They're going to discuss what they want. I'm not even sure they know what they want. Since they're going to be getting lights, their whole program could be totally different. And I don't know what that is, and I'm not sure they know what that is at this point. But just so y'all know, I am supportive of it in the way it is, but I am happy to make changes around the IT infrastructure. I hear what you're saying around the IT, and if we want to tweak that to better serve our students, I'm happy to do that. So if you guys want to entertain that, I'm an amendment. Well, I think maybe the originator has to do that, right?
If this happens to pass, we can revisit that piece of it if you want, based on recommendation on how to rejigger that if you want.
Yeah, you got to do it before the motion passes. You can't just, pass one thing and then go back and change it, yeah.
Withdraw your motion
Okay.
and recraft one.
No, but, I mean, yeah, no, we're not. Because we don't have enough information on how to come up with that number, how to rejigger that. And, I'm sorry. So we don't have enough information on how to do that effectively. I understand completely what you're saying. I entirely appreciate with Trustee Millerick what he's saying, and I'd welcome the opportunity, a meeting in when we, to be honest, we revisit what those are, just if we have to, or we do it very early in phase one in the BIC, which is going to come up in about 10 months, 9 months. So.
Okay. Yancy, did you have a comment?
If the board directs me, I can come back with options of how to allocate those funds.
The 10 million is what you're saying, or what are you saying?
If you approve those projects, we can come back with ideas. Yeah. So the idea is if you direct us to move forward with those projects, then we can bring back some different options for what staff believes keeping the IT infrastructure. Where else would we come up with the cuts to make it happen?
Yes.
So the 10.1
Yes.
to get us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fine.
So what about the furniture and the toolkit? I mean, haven't we had these like multiple conversations, bring it back, bring it back? I mean, you've brought things back in regards to options to us 3 times, I think. It just seems a little repetitive here that we're constantly going around. I feel like we're going in circles, I'll be honest with you. And this is what staff has brought forward. This is what they think is the right approach. They've obviously looked at the numbers. They know that Todd knows what we need to, what needs to be done. I count on his input in regards to construction and costs and things like that. So it just seems a little repetitive that we're going to be coming back again to try to find a way to allocate this 10 million, right? I just want to double check. You're saying you're going to go back with the 10 million.
I will do what the board directs me
Okay.
to do.
What else is there to look at, though? I'm not quite is there anything else to look at? We just approved the schematic design projects.
No, there are no other options but those three if they're moving forward with the project list, as noted by Trustee Mack, as moved by Trustee Mack. I do have one other. I did some quick calculations that I actually would like to share.
I would love to hear that, because right now I'm a little perplexed on what you're going to bring back.
No, in terms of that, it would just be some allocation between those three projects. But as noted, that is not staff's recommendation. But
that is not your right. But if the board directs you, obviously you will.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your what do you have?
No, just one thing that I noted is when I did a quick number, and so don't I haven't looked at I haven't double checked my math here, but this approval would put Novato High School at about $45 to $46 million in approved projects through phase 1, and San Marin at about $22 million in projects. The amount allocated in the facilities master plan, obviously not not a hard number, but for Novato High School is $42.8 million, and so that was just a
San
quick
Marin's
point.
at 22, you said.
San Marin currently has the Performing Arts Center,
Right.
and the STEM Center, which are 13.5 to 14 and 8.5
Okay.
on that. So.
We have an athletic director.
Yeah, I saw him walk in. So, Dennis, would you like to come up? Were you watching us from somewhere?
I was laying in bed in Petaluma watching it. I don't even have socks on right now.
Oh my God.
So I had.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I was out yesterday having surgery on my head, and so I'm kind of a little out of it, and I'm heated and frustrated listening to what I've been listening to. And for someone who's advocated my entire heart and soul for the athletic programs in this community as a whole, not just at San Marin. Sorry, I'm shaking. It frustrates me that one school would be considered for new baseball and softball fields and the other school to be completely overlooked. For a school that's getting a performing arts center that's worth much more than what we're getting at San Marin, we're getting the shaft on that. Yep. When we were told they're getting a performing arts center because they have MSA and you guys have STEM, so you're getting a STEM center. Quickly after that, now Novato's also getting a STEM center. They also got a $3 million pool for their athletic facility that we got the shaft on again. Our playing fields are just as bad. And it's not by accident that our families aren't here. You guys have seen the full force of our athletic community when this lights thing came in. And it was an intentional move on our part not to come down here and continue to barrage you with everything. There's about 60 kids at each school that play baseball, yep, and about 15 to 20 that play softball. I love our baseball team. I love our baseball program. Our baseball team last year won the North Coast Section Championship. Our field's terrible. It's bad. It's just as bad as Novato's. And our coaches and our parents put just as much effort into it as the people at Novato. And just because they're not here getting upset about it doesn't mean that they don't care or that it's not important to them. They've shown you time and time again that athletics are important to them. I've talked to both of our coaches. The reason why we're not here fighting is because I've basically told them there's 60 kids, if you include softball, 80 kids a year at each school that play these sports. I can't in good faith come and say that this is the most important thing that we have in our district. There are schools without air conditioning. There are schools we have, like you said, the Chromebook thing. Next year, we're going to have 1,000 kids at San Marin that have Chromebook, and not all of them can get online at the same time. So while I do, as an athletic director, this is my job, is to advocate for athletics in this district. And I don't think it's any secret to you guys how much I care about them, and I do advocate for them. But I can in good faith stand before you and say that a baseball field and a softball field that addresses the needs of 80 kids at each school takes the priority over anything else. Mm-hmm. They do need to be done. They can wait 2 or 3 more years to be done when that second chunk of money comes in. And so I don't know if I'm speaking the right way, but like I said, I literally got out of bed to come down here and probably broke several traffic laws on my way. But I'm passionate about it, and it frustrates me all along. No, we'll never separate them. And talking to Yancey and all the people here, no, they would never do one without that. No, the board would never approve that. The board would never approve one school without the other school. That's what we've been told all along. And they supported. They were true to their word. They didn't bring that proposal. So for that proposal to I feel like it was snaked in underneath all the people and all the work that's been done in the bond implementation committee and everything that's been done. I sat here last week for 4 hours, never had the opportunity to speak, but I was here waiting to be called up, and now it's under like stressful situations that I'm here. But I'm begging that you don't do one school without the other, but that also that you can't sacrifice education, because that's why we're here, for the playing facilities of 80 kids at each school every year when there's a district of 8,000 kids that need things. So thank you.
Dennis, we really appreciate you coming down. Take a deep breath. Thank you for speaking. Michelle, would you like to give you that opportunity as well?
Well, I want to, just support my colleague Dennis. There's been a lot of words put in his mouth that I've heard from this process that's been going on since February. San Marin wants this, Nevada wants that. I think it's really important that you do like Shelley said, which is actually talk to these people and see what they want. I also just want to remind you that equity, it does not mean equality. Anyone who's an educator has seen the image that basically shows that if we give every single school exactly the same thing, that's great and that looks awesome on paper, but it doesn't actually address the true needs of each individual site, which are vastly different. Novato doesn't have lights. So if we're going to go ahead and make the apples to apples comparison, then we also should get lights at our turf field. Now, I'm not going to go and say that we need to do that, because it's not apples to apples, okay? I'm not saying we need to get lights in our turf field. It would be great, of course, but because something's happening at one site doesn't mean it has to happen at the other. Equity means that you figure out what a student needs, and you meet them at that level, and you give them the opportunity to bring them up to an equal position. The same thing goes for facilities. You figure out what each site needs, and you make it happen to bring it up to a safe and equitable level, an equal level. I don't know what the needs of San Marin are, and I'm not going to be pitted against my colleague, Dennis Davis. All I know is that my fields are not safe, and my kids are going to get hurt. And that's all there is to it. You can't keep going to the sites and say, decide amongst yourselves what's more important, because I have a very clear job, and that's to advocate for athletics. I'm not saying air conditioning is not important. I will never go out on a limb and say we don't need this or we don't need that, because we do need all of these things. All I'm going to say is my fields are unplayable, and that's what I'm here to do. Sorry.
Okay. Trustee Scott has a comment.
So when we first started all of this, the needs of this district and all of our sites were well over $500 million. There's no way we could have passed a bond for over $500 million. It just doesn't pencil out with what the law says around the taxes for that. That being said, we did pass a bond for $222 million, and it's not enough to go around to all sites, plain and simple. Not only that, we're going to be getting less because of the various tariffs that the president has imposed, because of the various fires, there's additional labor. The money isn't going to go as far as it needs to. For me, this is about safety. These are the things that have bubbled to the top. We've had a tremendous amount of outpouring from these sites that these were items that were, safety in nature, and they are. And this isn't about San Marin not getting theirs. This is going to go back to your site. You guys are going to have to decide, what you guys are going to do.
And we'll do it.
Yeah, and same thing around the IT. I mean, I think the IT will be done as well. I think that's going to be something that's going to be done the next go around.
We have to.
Okay, so I'm going to speak to this item, and then I think we're going to go back to the motion. I don't see any adjustments or anything. We haven't come to change that motion at all. So I do not support the motion. I've said this from the very beginning that obviously, baseball and softball need turf. Absolutely, I get that. So does San Marin. They need turf as well. It's the way to go. It's financially and operationally the right thing to do. But we have a system in place, a process in place where we've chosen the projects and we've created a facility master plan. The projects are brought to the bond implementation committee, and they've identified criteria. Educational and safety are right at the top. Educational impact and safety are at the top. That process needs to continue through the life of our bond funds. We need to stick to that process because this is where we'll be every single board meeting, is having these constant conversations about projects. We have to rely on the bond implementation committee to make those decisions for us. We put that into their hands, and we expect them to do that. And not doing that is undermining that for our facility master plan, that document, and it's making it not relevant anymore. The process isn't relevant, the facility master plan isn't relevant if we don't, and we have bond language that we have to stick to as well. So the way to get to where we want to be, instead of pitting schools against each other, is to bring it back to the bond implementation committee, and for the money that is not, we are also financially running out of funds. We're not able to do as many projects and that's why we're here pitting things against each other. So again, I'm going to support the motion of the staff's motion is where I'm at right now, and I'll probably stay there. So that's why I question about what could you, and I don't want to take money away from the infrastructure. Absolutely not. That's been my call from the day one. I could maybe move a little bit on the furniture and the toolkit, but I will not take any funds out of that infrastructure upgrade. We have to teach kids, and part of that is through the classroom with technology. That's the wave of education in the classroom is technology, and we're not up to par as a district, so I'm not willing to touch that. So I do not support the motion that's on the table. Okay, so the motion is on the table.
One more request.
Yes.
Shelley,
Is it time to call the vote?
Shelley, your family lives in the
Point-
San Marin area.
point of
Your
order.
daughters- excuse
Hold on,
me,
we have a comment.
I have the floor.
It's all right.
I have the floor. You've sent daughters to both high schools. Equity is important. I'm asking you to vote no in this motion so we can get back and work through the items we agree on. I'm asking you to vote no in this motion. Thank you.
So the motion is on the floor. This is, I've reiterated it, so I'm not going to reiterate it anymore. So all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? 4 is yeas. Opposed? 3 noes. So 4-3 vote to move forward with Trustee Mack's motion. So that motion does pass, just to make that clear. We have, yeah, thank you, appreciate
So
that.
can we get that written up as clearly as possible by staff and get it out so there's
Yes.
double check everything?
Yeah, and this is on the YouTube video. Can we just hold down the audience a little bit? I know we're excited and all of that. We just have a meeting to continue on, if you don't mind. Quietly leave, and you can talk outside in the foyer. That's totally fine as well. We still have item number 6 on our list. This is approve moving forward with the facility master plan update and reconvening the bond implementation committee to prioritize phase 2 projects.
I will move item 6.
Well, discussion on that?
Absolutely.
Is there a second first?
You know,
I'll
be-
second.
Oh, yeah, okay, so we have first by trustee Millerick, and a second by trustee
All
Cooper.
right, so to be clear, item 6 is the calendar that staff presented on page, what page is your, no, it's towards the end.
Page 12,
All right.
and it's up on the screen.
So one of the things I think we can all agree on is that there's a lot of, everything that President Butler just said about having to keep change, every meeting we're going over this, there's been a breakdown in the system. We've had members of the Oversight Committee come to us and tell us that the number said one thing, 9 months ago it said this month and it changed. I pointed out the size of a green stamp was different this time, and it's there's so much uncertainty mostly driven by the fact that expenses are way higher than anyone calculated 2.5 years ago. I think waiting to the fall of 2019 as proposed is simply too long to wait. And I would rather that we step up the review of the second phase as soon as possible. I've been asking staff to make a recommendation, yet the recommendation remains the same. So if the board feels like we can wait to the fall of 19 to start addressing the issues that we all see and recognize in phase 2, that you want to wait that long, I'll do my best to help and be part of the process, but I think we should start as soon as possible.
Okay. Yancy, would you like to?
Staff's recommendation is the same on the timing of.
Okay.
I believe this gives us the time needed, and it doesn't. It leaves less time between when the process is done, and when the projects potentially become stale or come up. I guess the staff's recommendation is the same. I don't believe we get a lot of benefit from going back early. The second thing that I think, and I appreciate Trustee Nell's point around looking at these projects, we need to go in and take our facilities master plan, how it is, and look at it very carefully from a construction standpoint. We were 35 million likely. In addition, tonight we may have gone to 40 or 45. We're going to need to update that plan into a project-based plan instead of the nice kind of document that do. Whereas when we bring this back to the board, it needs to really say, here's what we're going to be able to do, and here's what we're going to try to. I don't recommend moving up the timeline. But I do believe with what Trustee Nell noted that we need to be working behind the scenes, reviewing this document and going through each individual one and turning them into projects to bring to each individual site as we open it up. We need to know whether that $40 million over really with the start of the project, could it be 30 million? Is it, we need to be clear on that before we get that started. And I believe this timeline allows staff to do that.
Okay. Superintendent Hogaboom.
Well, just also to weigh in on that, I think that one of the other things that the board knows is changing is the cost. So bumping it up is that the funds aren't going to be there until 2021. So you can do all this now, but there's no big fire drill because nothing's going to happen until 2021. The value of waiting till the fall of 2019 to start checking back with each site is we'll have a better idea of where we are with things now. We'll have a better idea of what costs are going to be in the future. So that process of going back to each site and frankly asking each site to prioritize things, that's going to be a lot easier to do if we have some more accurate numbers about what all the projects are and what's the 40 or frankly 50 million we're going to have to cut. So just to remind you, the baseball fields at both schools were not in the facilities master plan. The bond implementation committee never discussed it. The olive air conditioning wasn't in there either. So just of those projects, those were not even on the list of the 222 million. So there's a lot of prioritization that I think is best done at the school site and not by vocal people coming to the board. As President Butler said, we have a process. So I think going back to each site and doing that in the fall of 2019 lets us do some updated estimates at that time about what all those things are going to cost. And then my suggestion, we ask them, what if you've got, let's just pick Novato High School. They've got shade structure, they've got a whole, classroom modifications, a whole bunch of other things. And then we're not going to be able to do all those things at every site. So it takes it back to the site and says to the site, hey, sites, you guys prioritize because we're not going to be able to do all these things. And if these things got on there, other things come off. So I think it's important to go to the sites, to adjust those, and then bring those recommendations to the bond implementation committee when it's closer to releasing the funds in 2021, because then we just have more accurate information at that time.
Okay, so we got some clarity on that. Trustee Nell.
So I respect that, and the timing is valid. So perhaps I heard in what both Superintendent Hogaboom and Assistant Superintendent Hawkins were talking about was that maybe it's the fidelity of the process is also, maybe the emphasis needs to be on that as well. If we're going to wait till 19, then maybe we can spend some time, the things we're going to learn during what we actually do, construct, what actual costs are, that types of things. But I think we all sort of sense a sort of lack of fidelity to the way things are going. And so my concern is to get a handle on it and to work on maybe process. If we need time, then the focus ought to be on having a better process in place. So
The
I think
strength
that's
of
our
that.
shared goal. So I support, at this point, I support the recommendation and the timing, and look forward to working with everyone on trying to get a handle on the quality of what we're going to decide to do.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up, and because I was kind of leaning towards that, but hearing what staff had to say makes sense. So, okay, so we have a first by Trustee Millerick, a second by Trustee Cooper. This is again moving forward with the facility master plan update and reconvening the bond invitation committee to prioritize phase 2 projects. All in favor? 7-0. Okay. All right, so that concludes that item. 13B. And we will move on. Yancy, thank you so much. You've put a lot of work, and Mike as well. You guys have put a humongous amount of work into this, and know that we truly appreciate.
We do, thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's a lot of back and forth, but we made some decisions. Let's see. All right, so we are moving on to, this is review and approval of clarifying changes to Board Policy 5116.1. This is our inter-district open enrollment and administrative regulations. Or no, I believe it's just the administrative regulations, not the actual board policy.
Hi, trustees. I'll try to quickly through this for you. So one of the elements that we realized we had to do some refinements on after bringing it to the board November 2017 was our intra-district policy. As we worked through this policy during the summer, we realized that there were a few omissions and some things that we wanted to make sure made it into our most current version. So to clarify the language, as we worked through the summer, we had a few troublesome aspects. There were some language that we thought perhaps was in there that didn't make it in the final edit. So we got a task team together to really look at what we needed to refine to prepare this policy for the future. We discovered the language was really heavy about mailing. There was a lot of mailing, and we know that we're transitioning into Mint, the Mint portal, and a lot of digital communication. We're able to communicate with parents real time what their status is on the wait list. So we were focused on adapting the language for that. And then we found that we really didn't specifically clarify the priorities related to the Linwood students. So we needed to circle back and make sure that that was explicitly articulated in our AR. Our process for review is that we gathered together the clerical staff that dealt with these intra-districts during the summer and were able to identify some of these issues. Administration also was looped in with some of the language and the issues that may have been a little confusing. We met repeatedly throughout the September to discuss it. We really wrote it for clarity. We looked at different scenarios, played it through, made sure the language was there. And then we sent it off for council for review, and it came back deemed clear, transparent, and sound. So just to sort of highlight where these tweaks occurred in the policy, you've got it before you, but we needed to clarify what happens for individuals who enroll after that waitlist date. So to be clear, through our Mint portal, we can capture those as they're submitted. So we wanted to make sure that that language was clear in our regulations. We needed to clarify the displacement priorities. So for students who have been established the residency, that these displacements should occur under the last in are the first out. So when we have a scenario where we do have a student that is displaced from that wait list, those are the priorities that would be addressed. It's rare, we don't see that happening, but we felt like it was important to have language for that eventuality if that ever occurred. We really wanted to make it clear in the policy. You'll see that in our old policy, there was a section that had some priorities, that's in blue, a strike through, but then it was captured again later. We condensed that all to one specific location. So when we're looking at establishing those intra-district wait lists, first priority is individuals who reside in the boundaries. Second are siblings of students who are enrolled at that school. Third are students whose guardian is employed at the school. And the fourth is those Linwood students who choose to or are not qualified to participate in the dual immersion program. We needed to really explicitly articulate that to make sure those Linwood students got to the schools that they needed to within the district. Fifth is the on-time open enrollment students that get on a wait list on a lottery status. And the sixth is students who move in day one. And last is late enrollments who submit to the wait list after our close date. So we did feel the need to clarify that Linwood exit process, so that placements made on space available at different schools, and that we're going to try to transfer those siblings to the same schools. And we also wanted to clarify when those students are on wait lists that they can initially be on multiple wait lists. This upcoming year, we're hoping to have any of those Linwood exit parents select multiple schools. We didn't do that this year and really painted ourselves into a corner. So we want to make it clear that they're on the wait list of multiple schools. And then once one of those high preference schools for them has an opening, that they collapse to being waitlisted on only one. So we really wanted to make sure there was a robust means that we are serving those students and making sure that they had a seat during those summer displacements. We added in some procedures. We noticed that a lot of the other policies that we looked at had procedures for extenuating circumstances. So if we ever closed a program or needed to reappropriate students somewhere, we wanted to make sure that we had language around that. So we've added that in for that eventuality, should that ever occur. So those are the highlights of the changes in the regulation. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those.
Yep. Trustee Scott and then Trustee Cooper.
On the clarity for the intra-district priorities, who's going to be monitoring the list, and where's the list going to be? Is that going to be on the site, or is that going to be here at the district office?
So we'll be able to do all that through the MINT program that we have, and that's where it's going to be captured. So it'll be transparent, and it's at the district office.
The district will be handling that?
Yep.
Okay.
Trustee Cooper?
Thank you. The clarity on inter-district priorities, that slide.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just point out for me item number 3, where it is in the AR?
Page?
Sure.
What's that?
Where is it?
Oh, yeah, it says enrolled on number 3. It should be primarily employed.
Right. That was my question.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Yeah, it didn't
That
make
makes
sense.
a little clearer.
Employed.
All right.
Wow.
Thanks
Point
for
made.
catching that.
Was
Thank
that
you.
your
That was it.
concern? Okay, Ned sort of like, okay. Trustee Nell?
That's so funny because I thought it said employed, but it does. I mean, when I read it, I expected it to
She
say
said
that.
employed.
I know, that's weird how
I
you
need a
read what you
proofreader.
think you're
Thank you.
you're thinking that. So I appreciate that.
Just making sure you're paying attention.
Attention clarification. So my comment is just to be grateful that we're revisiting this. I somewhat expected it with the dual immersion aspect, and the implementation of School Mint, which is bringing in technology. You mentioned mail. That's an obvious thing, but I think it's also going to put us in a situation where we're gonna have changing scenarios. And I started to look it over, and I've been looking at these over the years, and we always have to bring these back periodically when things change. And in this particular case, the dual immersion program, I expected us to have to do things differently. And just to be honest with you, I started to come up with, well, what about this scenario, that scenario, and a sibling comes in 2 years later. You know, there's a lot of, you cannot predict any and every single possibility. But we're doing our due diligence by bringing it forward, reevaluating it based on the current circumstances, and trying to come up with something that's going to be as fair and equitable as possible. So I support the changes, and I suspect we'll probably be looking at it in a year from now anyway. But thank you for the work.
Trustee Aguila.
So excellent information. Thank you for updating it. Thank you for numbering the pages. I'm wondering about, you know, as you keep fixing it and adding and adapting it according to times, could you put the revised dates on this so we know, because there's no dates, so we don't know. And then also, is this new information, will it be available to our parents? And then will it be available in Spanish?
Yes. So once the board approves that regulation, then the next task is to circle back to our forms and make sure that our messaging on the website is very clear and transparent, because that's where all our parents are registering now, and adapting our paper form now to you know, that digital form that has that explanation, and that will be in English and Spanish.
And then just on the date purposes, the policy will have the revised date on it. You see them all listed there on the last page, so that will have it. So if that, just looks like you've crossed out a lot of by mail comments and moved to an online. Are we prepared for that? What if a parent comes in and says, I can't do it online? How are we going to support that? I can't submit my transfer application online. So.
Yep, and we can make note of that here, and we're able to still keep track of it. We'd just make a note of that. We did online Mint registration this summer and had a high participation rate, but there is an option always, and we'll make sure that that's messaged out in both English and Spanish, that an individual can come to the office, fill out a paper form, and we will maintain that communication still through that aspect.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. So this is a discussion or an action item, actually, to move this policy, the changes that are put before us. You also provided some data on some 2016-17 intras, and did anybody have any comments in regard to that? You don't have any more current data, 17-18 intras? Do you remember? You put this in the packet.
We had...
This says 16-17, which kind of for me is like kind of irrelevant.
Right.
I hate to say that, but
yep,
it's a little old.
That must have been a clerical error. We do have that, and the intention was to put that in front of the board. So,
can you just put it in the Friday update?
Absolutely.
A new updated version, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay. Trustee Aguila? Trustee Aguila, hold on.
Oh, I just wanted to make the motion to approve of the clarifying changes.
Okay. So we have a first by Trustee Aguila, a second by Trustee Millerick. All in favor to approve this revisions to 5116.170. Correct? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Moving on to our last item. This is a staff report regarding elementary school size committee. Yeah, Yancey, what did I say?
No, it says under me, but it's...
Oh, yeah, okay. And we heard a little bit about this at our board retreat, and now he's bringing this back around to us.
So just to give a little context around this item, last year, as part of the Budget Advisory Committee, and I see a Budget Advisory Committee member in front of me, thank you for your work. Not all the recommendations were for specific budget reductions or budget solutions for the 2018-19 year, although that was a real focus of that committee. Two other recommendations came out of that committee. One of them was the special education review, the efficiency review, which actually is kicking off this month. So that's exciting. And the other was to convene an elementary school size committee. One of the things that was very obvious from the demographer's report in 2018 from TSS was the reduction in size of our K-5 population over the last 5 years. The report was pretty clear that the primary cause of this was the lower birth rates in Marin County starting in 2009-10. Obviously, we see the impacts of those lower birth rates coming in 5 years when we see them as little TKers or kindergarten students. And so we've really kind of finally in 2018-19, although these numbers are last year because they're CBED's data, we really saw the full impact of that reduction. The average for the year, about 5 years before that was about 2,800 live births a year, and that reduced to about 2,300 live births. And so reducing our average class to approximately 500 from the 600 that it had been in the past. So yeah, down 500 students. As we noted, 500 students is larger than any of our K-5 populations at any school in 2017-18. And if 2018-19's numbers were there, and they will be updated as tomorrow is CBED's date, so they'll be updated soon, you would see that these numbers are down as well from 2017-18. So we're talking 500 students, and that obviously brought up the idea of, all right, are we running our elementary schools at the right size? We saw some data recently that our comparable school districts are running their campuses at larger numbers, and a lot of districts around the state run elementary school size, if not a little bit significantly larger than that. So the committee's goals, as noted, were to be budget and community focused. So it's not just a, what's the best thing to do from the budget standpoint, what's the best thing to do for our students and our community around this. The goals are to determine an ideal NUSD elementary school size. Obviously, we're a unique community. We have our unique needs and goals, and so it'll be important to kind of decide what we believe really is the ideal NUSD elementary school size. And then quantify any additional cost savings or additional costs that would be needed to move to an ideal NUSD elementary school size. And then lastly, obviously, is to make a recommendation to the board for next steps. And so really this would be a two-phased committee. The first committee would come and to determine what that size is and what recommendations, and then that would move on to, if there are recommendations that the board accepts and approves, then there would be an implementation committee of what to do next. Did I? Hold on. My apologies. I skipped, I jumped through one. I apologize. So it would be a superintendent's advisory committee. And we would be working with a facilitator who has done a lot of this work in the past from School Services of California, who are the preeminent experts in this area throughout the states. Our goal is to have approximately 20 members, but absolutely no more than 25 members on the committee, to have it be a parent-focused memberships with all elementary schools represented. And the committee may be made up of parents, teachers, classified staff, and administrators. Already went over that one, so we'll just move on to the next one. In terms of timelines, we're starting right now to work with the site principals to identify good folks for this that make sure that we've got representatives from all of our important stakeholder groups. Our tentative meeting schedule is to meet over 4 meetings once a month through January, and to bring recommendations by February of 2019. If phase 2 is needed after recommendations from the committee, those would be recommended to start immediately in March of 2019, but likely no formal action of what to do. Sorry, not of what to do, but implementation of it until fall of 2020. That would be the goal for any implementation of any goals. With that, I am happy to open it up to questions.
Okay, board members, questions on this committee and the process that they'll take? We have a facilitator, as you can see, Trustee Millerick, and
We
then
have a facilitator, that's great. We clearly have to figure out ways to cover costs, get costs down in this district, and to serve students. Buildings don't serve students, teachers do. So I'm looking forward to this process.
Okay, Trustee Nell.
I agree with Trustee Millerick, but I am not looking forward to this process. I know you're a little tongue in cheek. So
he's still thinking about the.
Well, this is going to be difficult. I guess, Yancy, my question is a little bit about timing, the rate of decline versus the end of this committee. You think we're okay? I mean, are things there's always the possibility things could decline beyond control, and we'd have 200 kids in an elementary school before we were ready to make a decision. But I was just sort of wondering if does the timing sort of sync with the demographics?
I understand your
decline?
Question. It does. The last 5 years has been consistent with the 4 or 5 before that of about 2,300 live births. So our expectation is that roughly 500 students per class will continue. If that doesn't continue into next year, obviously we can look at doing if there's something we need to do on that. The next impacts of the declining enrollment, at least as it's been caused by the declining birth rate in the county, really has primarily made it through the elementaries per our demographic report. So now we are expecting the same 500 kids. So we don't actually expect there to be significant decreases in the size of our elementaries going forward. Where we're going to see the declining enrollment really is at our middle schools and high schools over the next 5 to 6 years, as those kids when we had about 600 kids a year moving forward, that those kids are moving out of the system. So we are going to be seeing, I don't want to note that we aren't going to be seeing declines. Those declines just won't be necessarily at the elementary level. And as a point that we were discussing with Trustee Scott, the county actually has changed their projections going forward for county birth rates, actually have reduced those going forward to even below the 2,100, but we're likely not to see those until really 5 to 10 years in our out years.
Trustee Aguila, and then Trustee Mack.
So, thank you so much for this information. I just wondering if we can do extra hard work and outreaching to make sure that we have at least two representatives for this committee, for each site. If we can just work a little extra to make sure that everybody's being represented, and at least two, if possible.
Absolutely. We're going to do everything we can to get representation from all of our stakeholder groups, especially at the elementary level. Focused at the elementary level.
Trustee Mack.
This looks great. Thank you for putting it together. Really appreciate the very tight timeline, which is so important. I'm the rookie, haven't been through this before. I'm guessing everybody else has at some point. But just a couple questions. A couple questions on the process. Yeah, the rain's kind of loud. is in terms of the composition of the committee, no trustees, right, on the committee? It's really going to be just community members and staff? Okay. And then for me, and maybe it's just me, maybe you guys are fine, but I would appreciate getting just up to speed on the implications of what we're doing, and just kind of learn the ins and outs of how to do this the right way. And I know there's a great deal of experience at this board that has done that, but I'm just wondering if there's any kind of a way that, at least for me, I'm not sure if anybody else needs this, but to get up to speed in that regard. So
I'll give you a tip. When you close schools, board members get canned. Yeah. That's the basic model.
Yeah. So I'd like to avoid that.
It's.
But anyway, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Got it. But what I'm getting at is, I don't know if there's any kind of, just whatever you can give me to get up to speed.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if there's anybody else that needs that, but I would appreciate that.
So absolutely. And one of the nice things about working with School Services of California is they will be able to provide us with some of those resources. You know, there's 1,000 school districts in the state of California, and they've probably worked with 999 of them. And, you know, we don't have a unique issue in terms of declining enrollment here and needing to look at school size. So there's plenty of things out there that will get you, and we'll get out to the community as well.
I mean, to that end, maybe would it be possible to allow us to interact, you know, not extensively, but on an as-need basis with the facilitator with questions that we might have?
Based on her availability.
Yeah, and I don't want to burn up a bill either.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, you know, emails with, hey, you got anything, documentation you can give me to read, bedtime reading to learn how to do this, right?
We'll bill you for that.
Yeah, well, I'll go through Jim and.
Just teasing. Okay, Trustee
But, yeah.
Scott. And then I have 2 public comments.
So Yancy, worst case scenario, let's just say we end up having to close the school. At what point do we do a boundary study, or do we do a boundary study, or kind of walk me through? I mean, I know the last time we did this, we closed Hill Middle School. We did a boundary study because, you know, we had to redirect the path flows from the elementary to the middle to the high schools. Worst case scenario, at what point do we do that? And can you remind me, in the back of my mind, I remember thinking that boundary study was really expensive.
It depends. It depends
Okay.
on what you're doing. I think the important part, so the first part would be to bring the recommendation, and along with the recommendations, we would bring any potential costs. Because the one thing in terms of
Is that like an automatic though, inclusive of, or no?
you are, I mean, if you close a school, you will have to redo your boundaries.
Okay, I thought so.
And so there are different ways at different costs to do that, but you're going to have to look at changing your boundaries. The only way it wouldn't be is if you have a school of choice that is closing, but we don't have any K-5 schools of choice. So that wouldn't be an option.
And that brings up another question just really quick. Sorry, I'm getting up to speed once again. So when the recommendations come through, is it really going to be just a recommendation to close a school or a specific school, or we don't know yet?
So the first phase of this is really to come up with really what is the ideal school size, and that's going to take a lot of consideration. And you know, obviously with us declining in enrollment, you know, the thought is that maybe it is higher than it currently is, but we don't know that. It might not be. So the first recommendation would be, you know, what is that ideal school size? And, you know, if it's larger than our current one, and the recommendation from the community would be to close a school, then it would be to come with numbers and a recommendation on that. If the board moved forward with that, we would move into all the logistics of, you know, how we would, you know, potentially do that.
So to be clear on your timeline, the committee recommendations in February of 2019 are going to be around school size recommendation. And based on that, whether or not this district should consider closing a campus?
Potentially, yes. If that's what the committee believed, that the ideal school size should be larger, and that the savings that potentially could be found would
I get it.
Would argue that point,
I hear what you're
then
saying.
the recommendation would come. And then we would look at any logistics as basically as phase 2.
So yeah, March, then we start getting into the details. Okay, this is the target. I mean, this is the objective, I should
Yes.
say. Now, how are we going to do it?
Yes.
So strategy, then tactics, basically.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we have 2 comment cards. So I have Jana Morbitz and Kim Staley.
Hello again. A few things I've been looking at this. It was mentioned to us when we were doing our dual immersion about closing a school. And so I just wanted to put a couple thoughts out there that I've had. It was I can't remember who brought it up. Sorry, it's way past my bedtime. That in the bond process, a lot of schools are vocal here. And so I really want to caution you to think about your process and the criteria and not who shows up here, even though I'm here. I notice that there's no translation at these meetings. There's no Spanish speakers at these meetings. And so I just want to be really careful because I won't name any schools, but I can maybe think or predict who's going to be standing up here fighting for their school with the loudest voice, and that doesn't mean it's the right school to save. So I just wanted to put that out there at the outset. I also think that speed is really important. I'm a little unclear on the timeline. If we're just looking at numbers in March of 2019, the slide wasn't up when you were talking, so I was unable to kind of check it. I think that more than ideal school size numbers, financial numbers need to be looked at the same time. I don't think that we need to be looking at ideal school size when our teachers aren't getting paid. Yes, I'm a teacher. But I do think that the finances need to be considered along with school size at the same time. We don't need to come back and say ideal school size is 300 in 6 months, now what? I think it's something that should be done in a parallel track. I also am very concerned. I just stood up here and asked you to vote for Linwood and all of that and to remodel our school and give us air conditioning. Our bond is not going to do what it said it was going to do. We all know that, sorry. That always happens with bonds. It would be a travesty to put money into a school and then close it. So I really feel that that needs to be taken into consideration in the timeline of this process. And I wanted to get the vote done, and I know that, and I obviously hope it's not Linwood that's closing. But I do think that those things need to be put out there at the outset, that the bond and this committee cannot run on 2 different tracks. They need to be communicating and making sure that the goals are in working together. I'm really sorry that my language, I usually go to bed, I get up at 4:30. So I see Tom sometimes at the gym, actually. So anyway, I just hope that we can make sure that all those pieces are working together and the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, because our district is short on money in many areas. And so to be misspending it, we can't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your suggestions.
Hey guys, thanks for air conditioning. That's super exciting. It's like super freezing in here, so it's like a great celebration. Yeah, exactly. No, from San Francisco for these last, so no, that's really exciting. And I totally agree with everything that you said about who comes to the podium. I mean, obviously, I feel nervous as Olive because I feel like Olive, Linwood, Loma Verde, like we don't have a lot of wealthy families. We don't have a lot of money, and it seems like that's what oftentimes gets paid attention to. I have not heard about the committee at all. And if the committee meets on October 22nd, like, and again, at Olive, we have a little bit different situation. Our principal is on leave, so we have an interim principal. But it makes me concerned that if I, as the PTA president, haven't heard about who's participating, then I know that that's probably, I'm not alone. And that makes me concerned because I think that's probably one of the processes that we've had problems with in the bond implementation committee is who's in that room. And then we're going to have more problems. So I agree that time is of the essence, but just to make clear that all the leaders should be there, and especially if you want it to be a parent-centric thing. Again, if I don't know about it as PTA president, that's like a huge red flag that things are not clear. And so I think we have a North Marin Council meeting this Friday, just down the hall. I think all the PTA presidents are going to be there, so not the PTO presidents, but the PTA, but anyway, it's a good opportunity to do that. And then also, I'm already irritated by the words ideal school size, because I feel like ideal school size is small classrooms. I feel like ideal school size are small schools. We came from San Francisco, where our school was double the population of Olive on half the size of campus. So I'm coming from a big school, 500 kids, and I think that ideal school size is not really the right nomenclature. It might be cost-effective school size, most, how we really handle the money, but I don't think that ideal school size is the right nomenclature, because I'm a big believer that I love Olive because we have small classrooms. My son, who is in 5th grade, is in a class with 22 kids. In San Francisco, he'd be in a class with 36 kids. So I think that we just have to be mindful that I think it's more about economics than it is about what an ideal school size is. Smaller classes, small teachers. I think that's what makes Novato schools great. And again, I think that a lot of the kids, at least I know from Olive, they walk to school. And so it'll be a big deal. It's not a big deal for me because I can drive my kids to school, but I think a lot of the population who walks to school, it's going to be very important. Olive is, geographically, we serve a lot of people who are out there. And so for myself, like, gosh, could I get, San Ramon's already crowded, overcrowded, so living in Bahia, like, where are my kids going to go? And that also reflects, like, who are my kids going to play with? Play dates, social things, like it all comes into effect. So I hope that you consider those things as well. Thank you.
All right, all very good points made, and so I appreciate both of you staying and providing that input to the board. That's your feedback is very important. So, do you want to speak to a couple of those?
Yeah, I did, because I think they were actually wonderful questions and comments, and I do want to clarify a couple other things. Superintendent Hogaboom is going to be taking a leading role in this, so we do have a facilitator, but Superintendent Hogaboom will be leading this process. And one of the notes, I think when we noted ideal size, I put that in quotes very specifically. I can't see where it is. I apologize. I put it in quotes for very specific reasons. Is part of the committee's responsibility is to determine what an ideal size is for Novato Unified. It's not necessarily the most cost effective. It's, there's tons of factors that the committee will look at to say maybe small is the ideal size, maybe large is the ideal size. So this will be something that the committee will be looking at in different ways to look at that. And then the other, it's a great point around the bond projects. We are looking at this, and we'll be very clear. We can't stop things along the bond, but we absolutely can have very important points where significant money will be committed. And so those are the points that, this timeline really allows us to do two parallel paths. And if one is looking like it might impact the other one, we can look to delay or hold off on a decision until we have the other decision. So I think those were actually really great points. And so I appreciate them bringing them up.
Great.
Oh, the last thing is I want to be clear that any implementation right now, at least from staff, wouldn't be until the fall of 2020. So it would really be a 2-year process to make sure that we're taking everything into consideration as we move forward, if there are recommendations and approvals in phase 1.
Okay. All right, Trustee Nell.
One of the other comments was starting October 22nd, which is right around the corner.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Good point.
I mean, can you give us some assurances that we're really going to get the word out and make sure that, like Trustee Aguila's comments early, make sure we got 2 people? I mean, I don't want to hold up the process, but it's enough time for us really to get the word out so that we don't have people showing up a year later saying, I didn't know this was happening.
So we have started that process, and I did note those were the tentative dates for the meeting. If we don't feel like we are ready to start on the 22nd, we will not start on the 22nd. But given the fact that we would like to get these recommendations in by February, we would like to have an October meeting. So if it works, we absolutely will. And if not, then we can start at the November meeting date. But this schedule, we believe at this point that that we can implement.
All right, thanks for addressing it.
Okay. Trustee Miller and then Trustee Aguila.
My memory from the last time we did this, and it takes more time than you think, was we sat down and the community through that committee established the values that Novato holds, and if it's 6 C's or one to world technology or whatever the criteria are, we went through and did the exercise of first establishing set of values and then applied the values in step 2 to how it would impact this choice of campus size and campus configuration. So it gave us a little bit of an arm's length reach to make sure we were driving the decision-making process with a value structure that we had established and put down in writing at the beginning of the process. So I suggest that to you, and if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Trustee Aguila?
Yes, and could you make sure that this announcement would be made in Spanish, reaching out to our Spanish community, Latino community?
And I think there was a comment about translation at the meetings. Translation
at the
committee
meetings too.
Yeah.
So, something we better make sure that is available. All right, this was a staff report. If we're good, we'll let staff move on. So, okay, so that is it. Thank you, Yancy, very much. I know you'll keep us posted. That concludes this meeting. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is October 16th. So we finally have a little bit of a break, and it gives staff a break, which I think is necessary. This is, again, our 7th board meeting. So this meeting is adjourned.